On his 30th wedding anniversary, Zhao Wenjiang took his own life. The very next month after his death, his wife, Fu Shirui, had a new husband. All his belongings in the house were thrown away. Even his favorite ginkgo tree was cut down and replaced with a phoenix tree. He had no children, so there was no one left who might remember him. 2012, a government compound in Beiping. Happy 30th wedding anniversary. Minister Fu, Zhao Wenjiang sat beside Fu Shirui, calmly listening to the congratulations. Once the banquet was halfway through, Fu Shirui vanished without a trace. Zhao Wenjiang knew she had gone to find that man, but he no longer had the energy to care. Zhao Wenjiang brought this on himself. He tore apart a pair of lovers, and now he's all alone. Shut your mouth. Exactly. Fu Shirui, a foreign minister, and Zhao Yutao, a government clerk. If they were together now, what a perfect couple they would make. Faint whispers drifted into Zhao Wenjiang's ears, yet he remained utterly silent. After the banquet ended, he calmly tidied up the house and then walked alone into his room. He sat by the window, looking out through the bluish-green wooden frame at a bare ginkgo tree trunk. He had been looking at the same view for 30 years. He stayed there until night fell. Silently, he took out the rope he had prepared long ago, looped it over the beam, and stepped up onto the stool. With a heavy thud, the stool toppled over. His name was Zhao Wenjiang, on his 30th wedding anniversary. He took his own life. Zhao Wenjiang never expected to survive. When he opened his eyes again, he thought he'd been rescued, but as soon as he sat up, he knew something was wrong. The ginkgo tree outside the window was unnaturally lush and full. His gaze swept the room. The bold red characters for May 12, 1982, on the calendar leapt out at him. Zhao Wenjiang's mind went completely blank. He had no idea how long he stood there, stunned, before the realization finally dawned. He had somehow been thrown back 30 years, to a time just 3 months after his marriage to Fu Shirui. He opened the door and walked into the living room. His eyes took in the sight of brand new, old-fashioned desks and chairs, while the ceiling fan blades whirred and clicked as they spun. Zhao Wenjiang stood there in a daze, and just at that moment, the door swung open. He looked up and saw Fu Shirui from her younger days. She was dressed in a crisp white work uniform. Her delicate features held a touch of heroic spirit, and while her eyes and brows were gentle, they also carried the imposing aura of someone in command. This was the woman he had loved his entire life, and also his formidable, self-assured, yet distant and aloof wife. In a daze, Fu Shirui placed the bag in her hand on the table and said indifferently, "Your family is coming over today, make sure to prepare more food." With that, she left without so much as a glance in his direction. Zhao Wenjiang paused for a moment before stepping forward, picking up the groceries, and heading into the kitchen to wash them. The icy water seeped through his palm and chilled his very heart, making him feel as if he were trapped in a dream of terrifying clarity. He was back at the beginning of the nightmare that had haunted him for 30 years. This was the year his birth parents found him. And it was also the year he was drugged and ended up in bed with Fu Shirui, the incident that became the nightmarish prelude to their forced marriage. The clock struck 6. Zhao Wenjiang brought out the final dish, and a handsome man stepped forward to take it from him. His name was Zhao Yutao, now the youngest staff officer in the propaganda department. Anyone who met him would remark that he was truly a son of the Zhao family, if the two of them hadn't been switched at birth 20 years ago. Zhao Wenjiang might have been the one living this life, Zhao Yutao said with a smile. Wenjiang and Shirui have been married for 3 months, and his cooking has improved tremendously. Zhao Wenjiang's eyes flickered. After cooking for 30 years, it's only natural that things are worlds apart from how they are now. Zhao Wenjiang pressed his lips together, unsure how to respond, and remained silent for a long while. His silence, however, drew a furious rebuke from old Zhao at the dinner table. "What are you standing there for? Someone's talking to you and you don't even respond. You're like a block of wood, Mrs." Zhao tried to calm him. "All right, old Guan, that's enough now." Then, turning to Fu Shirui, she said, "Shirui, I know you're upset about being married to Wenjiang. Our Zhao family has wronged you." As she spoke, Mrs. Zhao's eyes grew moist. Hearing this, Zhao Yutao immediately patted her arm. "Mom, it's all in the past now." Zhao Wenjiang stood as stiff as a post, staring straight at the all-too-familiar scene before him. He had seen this play out countless times in his past life. At first, he would try to explain. He wasn't the one who drugged Fu Shirui, he was a victim too, but no matter what he said, no one would believe him. They called him shameless, they called him vicious, they accused him of using such despicable means to steal the person his younger brother loved. At first, Zhao Wenjiang felt wronged, indignant, and heartbroken. Later, he grew tired of speaking, his voice grew hoarse, and only then did the pain in his heart finally subside. Mr. Zhao sighed along with her, but his peripheral glance fell on Zhao Wenjiang's impassive face, and his anger flared even hotter. He snapped coldly, "How dare you just stand there? How did I ever raise such an ill-mannered beast?" Beside them, Fu Shirui frowned slightly, her lips parting as if to interject. Zhao Wenjiang finally spoke, his voice hoarse from disuse. "Dad. You say I have no manners, but what exactly did you ever teach me?" Chapter 2. Zhao Wenjiang's confusion was genuine and uncomplicated. His biological parents had taught Zhao Yutao to read and understand the ways of the world, enabling him to secure a position as a clerk in a government office. They had taught his elder brother, Zhao Lin, martial arts and military knowledge, allowing him to become a young naval lieutenant. But what about him, Zhao Wenjiang? In the 6 months since he had been recognized and brought back, not even the word dad had been something his father taught him to say. A stunned silence fell over the room at Zhao Wenjiang's words. Zhao Wenjiang, who was usually as quiet as a mouse, had actually learned to be sarcastic. Mr. Zhao's face flushed crimson with rage. He stood up to slap Zhao Wenjiang, but Fu Shirui swiftly intercepted him. "Uncle Zhao, take a moment to calm down." Fu Shirui turned back to Zhao Wenjiang and said in a low, serious voice, "Your parents are your elders, after all. Just listen when they lecture you a little and let it go." Lecture him a little. A faint ripple stirred in Zhao Wenjiang's eyes, which had been as still as stagnant water. Ever since he returned to the Zhao family, he had been constantly lectured. "Your handwriting is atrocious, not a patch on Yutao's. Can't you fix the way you walk? It's nothing like Yutao's. You always look so listless." But what did he ever do wrong? Zhao Wenjiang's upbringing was worlds apart from Zhao Yutao's. After being switched at birth, he grew up in the countryside. Every day, he had to rise before dawn to cut pigweed, feed the pigs, cook, and do the laundry. The household chores for a family of 6 fell entirely on his shoulders, leaving him no time for studies, let alone practicing his posture or gait. When the Zhao family finally found him, he was on the verge of being sent to work in a factory to earn a bride price for his adoptive parents' son. How could a Zhao Wenjiang like this ever compare to Zhao Yutao, who had received an excellent education from childhood? Zhao Wenjiang thought a great deal, but without saying a word, he walked past them and went straight back to his room. The door closed. He shut the door, blocking out the angry shouts behind him. After what felt like an eternity, the Zhao family finally left. Zhao Wenjiang lay on the bed, staring blankly at the white bed canopy. The door swung open abruptly. Fu Shirui strode to the bedside, her brow furrowed as she looked down at him. "What's wrong with you today? Are you feeling unwell somewhere?" Her tone was cool and accusatory, but Zhao Wenjiang remained silent. Fu Shirui's brow furrowed deeper, her voice growing impatient. "What do you mean by not saying anything?" Hearing this, Zhao Wenjiang's heart felt as if it had been scalded. In his past life, this was a question he often asked Fu Shirui, and the only answer she ever gave him was silence. Day after day, night after night, time dragged on like a dull knife sawing through flesh, a torment that nearly drove one mad. In the end, he frantically smashed things in a desperate bid to capture her attention, but it was all for nothing. It wasn't until that one time, when Zhao Wenjiang hurled a glass at her, that the shards grazed Fu Shirui's arm. Fu Shirui merely shot him a look of disgust and spat out a cold, scathing word. "You're insane." That was the first time Fu Shirui had ever cursed at him, and it was the wound that cut the deepest, because he finally realized that life had long since ground him down into a madman. From that day on, Zhao Wenjiang was like a completely different person. Day after day, his face was a blank mask, his movements lifeless, until he finally took his own life. But now, his silence only served to perplex Fu Shirui. Zhao Wenjiang looked at Fu Shirui, at a complete loss for words. After a long pause, he finally managed a few words. "I'm not feeling too well." Hearing the reply, Fu Shirui's brow relaxed slightly. She said coolly, "If you're unwell, go to the clinic. Don't make a scene at home in the future." With that, she turned and left. Zhao Wenjiang was already accustomed to such a cold response from his past life. Just as he had anticipated, the door clicked shut behind her. A heavy, suffocating pressure settled in Zhao Wenjiang's chest, making it hard to breathe. Early the next morning, Zhao Wenjiang made his way to the military uniform factory for work, his movements somewhat unfamiliar. In his previous life, he had only worked here for 5 years before being posted abroad with Fu Shirui. Just as Zhao Wenjiang reached the entrance, A stranger who looked like an older brother suddenly approached him, slung an arm over his shoulder, and said warmly, "Wenjiang, how have you been lately? Let's go in together." After 30 years in his past life, all these people felt unfamiliar to him. Before he could even react, the man pulled him inside with firm insistence. Once inside, the older brother immediately released his shoulder and hurried off into the factory with quick steps. Zhao Wenjiang was utterly baffled. The work bell rang. Zhao Wenjiang looked around before finally making his way to a vaguely remembered workstation, where he then began operating the sewing machine with some awkwardness. 2 hours later, suddenly, the factory's alarm sirens blared. The factory manager gathered everyone together and said angrily, "There's been a theft. Someone saw a stranger, who brought them in." Zhao Wenjiang's heart sank. The next moment, a worker raised his hand and pointed at him. "Manager, I saw Zhao Wenjiang bring that person in. They must have been in on the theft together." Chapter 3. At these words, everyone stared at Zhao Wenjiang in astonishment. The factory director immediately snapped coldly, "Zhao Wenjiang, explain yourself." Zhao Wenjiang's heart gave a lurch. He hurried forward to explain, "I didn't steal anything. A man suddenly came up and started walking with me, but I don't know him." But no one believed him, and a torrent of ugly words came pouring out. "This Zhao Wenjiang came from the countryside. His hands and feet are definitely not clean." "That's right, I heard he's downright vicious. He even drugged Comrade Fu to force her into marriage." These were the same words Zhao Wenjiang had heard countless times in his past life. Hearing it again now, his heart had long since learned to respond with numbness. The clamor and commotion gave the factory director a splitting headache. "Everyone, disperse. This is a very serious matter. Someone go and fetch Comrade Fu. Have her come here at once." Soon after, Fu Shirui arrived in a hurry. On the way, she had already been filled in on the whole story. The moment she entered, she walked straight up to the factory director, shielding Zhao Wenjiang behind her. "Director," she said, "I believe my husband would never steal." Zhao Wenjiang's heart skipped a beat. He had expected Fu Shirui to blame him without a second thought. He never imagined she would actually believe in him. Seeing the director remain silent, Fu Shirui continued, "But he was wrong to bring someone into the factory without permission. Whatever the loss is, I'll cover it." The factory director pondered for a moment, then finally nodded. "Out of respect for Comrade Fu, we'll let this matter drop. I'm sure your husband isn't that lacking in awareness." After the discussion concluded, Zhao Wenjiang followed Fu Shirui out in silence, watching Fu Shirui's straight, retreating back. He recalled her recent defense of him, and his feelings became profoundly complicated. The next moment, Fu Shirui abruptly stopped in her tracks, looking down at him with a cold expression. "Zhao Wenjiang, if you really stole it, you'd better return it immediately." Zhao Wenjiang froze on the spot, a sharp pang of pain shooting through his heart. He felt utterly ridiculous. He had spent 30 years with this woman in his past life, yet he had still dared to believe she would trust him. Zhao Wenjiang stared straight at her, his voice hoarse with emotion. "If you think I'm the one who stole it, then why did you speak up for me? You are my husband in name. We rise and fall together. Your foolish actions would naturally drag me down with you." As she spoke, Zhao Wenjiang saw clearly that a trace of disgust had crept onto Fu Shirui's previously indifferent face. A strange, choking sorrow welled up in his throat. Zhao Wenjiang's eyes flickered, the expression on his face slowly drained away, leaving behind a growing numbness. After a long pause, he forced 3 words from his throat, "I understand." Upon returning home, Fu Shirui went straight to the study. Zhao Wenjiang picked up the shopping basket and headed out to buy groceries. All the way there, he could feel people's strange, lingering stares, as he picked through the vegetables at the vendor's stall. The owner watched his hands like a hawk, as if he were a thief. He knew the news about the factory had already spread. Rumors can't defend themselves, so Zhao Wenjiang could only face them with a blank expression. After buying groceries, he headed home. Just as he reached the foot of the apartment building, he looked up and saw Zhao Yutao and Fu Shirui standing side by side under the dense shade of a tree. Zhao Wenjiang's footsteps faltered. "Over there." Zhao Yutao's tone was one of relief. "You and Wenjiang are married now. Just live your life well and let bygones be bygones." Fu Shirui fell silent for a moment before speaking coldly. "What I despise most in this life is being manipulated." The biting chill in her words betrayed her disgust, and a trace of disdain flickered across her already cold face. Zhao Wenjiang heard it. He lowered his gaze, fiercely suppressing the stinging pain welling up in his eyes, then slowly began to walk forward. The 2 people froze upon seeing him. Yet Zhao Wenjiang walked past them as if they were invisible and entered the building. as they passed each other. A flicker of surprise crossed Fu Shirue's eyes. She watched Zhao Wenjiang's figure gradually disappear into the distance, her brow slowly furrowing. Chapter 4. Zhao Wenjiang returned home and prepared dinner. Just as he emerged from the kitchen carrying a dish, the door swung open, revealing his father, bristling with rage, and Zhao Yutao attempting to calm him down. Fu Shirue followed behind with an air of indifference. "Dad, please don't be angry." Zhao Wenjiang watched with an impassive expression, wondering what they were up to now. The next moment, old Mr. Zhao strode over, berating him angrily. "You good-for-nothing thief, how dare you steal?" Before Zhao Wenjiang could even react, his father's hand came down hard across his face. Caught completely off guard, Zhao Wenjiang was knocked to the floor. The plate in his hand clattered to the ground with a sharp, jarring crash, his ears ringing. Zhao Wenjiang looked up dazedly to see Zhao Yutao restraining his furious father. "Dad, why would you hit him? It might all be a misunderstanding." Zhao Yutao then turned to console him. "Wenjiang, father is just too angry, don't blame him." This only made old man Zhao angrier. With a ferocious expression, he pointed at him. "What a curse, how did I, Zhao Zhenghua, raise such a useless son? I'm telling you, return what you stole tomorrow, or I'll beat you to death." Fu Shirue, standing to the side, rubbed her temples and watched the scene unfold in silence. Zhao Wenjiang took it all in. He lowered his head, looking at the mess of food scattered on the floor. He took a deep breath, but uncontrollably, his eyes gradually reddened. Old Mr. Zhao was still berating him. "Do you know what people are saying out there? To think that I, a brigade commander, could raise a son with such disgraceful conduct." The harsh voice crackled intermittently in Zhao Wenjiang's ears, which were still ringing from the blow, like static from a broken radio. Zhao Wenjiang closed his eyes for a moment, then slowly rose to his feet and, ignoring his father's fury, began to clean up the mess on the floor. This only served to infuriate old man Zhao even more. He stepped forward and kicked Zhao Wenjiang's hand as he was picking up the shards. "What are you doing, you incorrigible wretch?" Zhao Wenjiang's hand was instantly cut by the sharp porcelain fragments, and crimson blood immediately welled up across his palm. Fu Shirue's brow furrowed tightly as she saw the flash of red in Zhao Wenjiang's hand. She stepped in front of Mr. Zhao. "Uncle Zhao, this is a family matter. Please, go home for now." Mr. Zhao froze, his movements coming to an abrupt halt. Zhao Yutao snapped back to reality. He forced a weak smile at Fu Shirue before pulling his father away. Fu Shirue closed the door and turned to see Zhao Wenjiang resuming his tidying up. Blood stained the floor. A surge of inexplicable anger tightened in her chest. She simply crouched down, snatched the porcelain shard from Zhao Wenjiang's hand, and deftly cleared the mess on the floor. Zhao Wenjiang was stunned, unsure why she had done that. After tidying up, Fu Shirue placed a small case on the table. "Come here," she said, "let me treat that." Zhao Wenjiang glanced at his bloodied palm and shuffled over slowly. Fu Shirue lowered her head to tend to his wound. The sight of the bloody gash was starting to grate on her nerves. "What's wrong with you? You've been acting strange since yesterday." Zhao Wenjiang looked down, while Fu Shirue glanced up. Their eyes met. Zhao Wenjiang's lips parted as if to speak, but the words died in his throat. What is there to say? Those 30 years known only to himself. Those 30 years of a lifetime's repression. Fu Shirue, who had never lived through those days, left him unable to even voice his accusation. So what else could he possibly say to Fu Shirue? Seeing that he remained silent, Fu Shirue's brow furrowed even tighter, but she didn't press him further. After his hand was bandaged, Zhao Wenjiang spoke hoarsely. "Thank you." Having said his thanks, he got up and returned to his room. He lay on the bed, his gaze unfocused. His previous 30 years felt like a long, hazy dream, and to this day, he still couldn't fathom the meaning behind being granted a second chance at life. The next day, Zhao Wenjiang went to work at the military uniform factory as usual. However, he found the rumors circulating were becoming increasingly outrageous, with some even claiming he was the thief. Knowing that explanations were futile, Zhao Wenjiang could only bury himself in his work. After finishing a long day's work, he saw Zhao Yutao waiting for him at the entrance. Zhao Yutao approached, his eyes filled with concern. "Wenjiang, I believe you didn't do it, but this matter is spreading, and the consequences could be very serious. Do you understand?" Zhao Wenjiang could tell there was more to Zhao Yutao's words than met the ear. He pressed his lips together and spoke in a low, heavy voice. "What do you want me to do?" Zhao Yutao's eyes flickered slightly as he said softly, "How about, you just quit your job? It would be better for you, and for Fu Shirui, Zhao Wenjiang stared at him, feeling as if a massive boulder were pressing down on his heart, leaving him stifled and breathless. He couldn't understand, how could Zhao Yutao always say such things with such righteous conviction? In this life or the last, a simple "it's for your own good" gives them the gall to meddle in his affairs with Fu Shirui. A simple "it's for your own good" makes it seem perfectly reasonable to demand I sacrifice everything. What are you to Fu Shirui now? What gives you the right to advise me? With those words, Zhao Wenjiang left Zhao Yutao behind, the latter's face a mask of displeasure. He walked faster and faster, and before he knew it, he found himself on a derelict bridge. The lake water beneath the bridge was as smooth as a mirror. It reflected Zhao Wenjiang's silhouette, a young, silent man. A soul that had been dead for 30 years. He took a step forward, trying to get a clearer look. The next moment, someone grabbed his wrist, he stumbled, and his face collided with a soft body. The woman's face was a picture of brazen contempt. Look, she sneered, if you want to get yourself killed, don't do it on my turf. Chapter 5. Zhao Wenjiang stared at the newcomer in stunned disbelief, backlit by the light. The woman's delicate, attractive features slowly came into focus. Her almond-shaped eyes were dark, her lips set in a slight, downward curve. Though her face was cold, her expression held a bold, untamed defiance. Zhao Wenjiang suddenly recognized her. Her name was Shintong. The first time he saw her was right after he had been brought back to the compound, his heart pounding with anxiety. He had barely stepped into the courtyard when he encountered Shintong being chased and beaten by her father. She ran at a leisurely pace, not forgetting to taunt her father with a mischievous shout, "You're getting old, Dad, can't even keep up anymore." Fuming with rage, her father stomped his feet and yelled, "You little brat, just wait until I catch you." In the courtyard, Zhao Wenjiang and Shintong were both notorious good-for-nothings. It was because of his bad reputation. As for Shintong, she was aimless and restless, always running around and refusing to follow in her father's footsteps by joining the military. But later, Shintong seemed to change. While accompanying Fu Shirui abroad, he had also vaguely heard stories about her. Word is, Shintong, that troublemaker girl from the compound, joined the military. They say she's shed her old carefree ways and headed to the most dangerous place in the country. Hey, I'm talking to you, you got a death wish or something? Shintong's words snapped Zhao Wenjiang out of his thoughts. He pressed his lips together and mumbled, I don't have a death wish, but, thanks. Shintong's dark pupils fixed on him for a few seconds before she averted her gaze, drawling lazily, fine, don't come back. It'd be a real joke if someone your age managed to slip and drown. With that, she turned and walked away. He just stood there, staring dumbly at her retreating figure until it vanished from sight. By the time he got home, it was already dark. As soon as Zhao Wenjiang stepped inside, he saw Fu Shirui sitting on the sofa reading a book. Hearing the door open, she glanced up idly, her gaze sharp and appraising as she looked at him. Where have you been? Just clearing my head, Zhao Wenjiang replied offhandedly. With that, he made to head back to his room. Wait, Fu Shirui said. What is it? Zhao Wenjiang stopped and turned, a hint of surprise in his voice. After a brief silence, Fu Shirui spoke. They caught the thief this afternoon. Your name's been cleared, you can go back to work. Zhao Wenjiang was quiet for a moment before replying softly, I see. He turned, then abruptly stopped, a strange sense of foreboding rising within him for no apparent reason. Who caught the thief? A rare hint of emotion flickered in his usually flat tone. Fu Shirui glanced at him, then raised an eyebrow and said, it was the Shin family's youngest daughter, Shintong. Upon hearing the answer, a sense of I knew it welled up in Zhao Wenjiang's heart. For some reason, a sudden warmth welled up in his heart. Fu Shirui added, we need to host a foreign ambassador tomorrow, you should attend with me. Zhao Wenjiang looked up at her, even more astonished. In his past life, Fu Shirui would never have taken the initiative to invite him to such an important occasion at this time. What's going on today? Seeing this, Fu Shirui felt an inexplicable awkwardness. She turned her head away before explaining, this time, we need to bring family members along. I see. Having gotten his answer, Zhao Wenjiang lost the desire to press the matter further and simply nodded in agreement. The next day, early in the morning, Zhao Wenjiang put on a crisp suit and combed his hair perfectly into place. It instantly sharpened his appearance, making him look both sharp and impeccably proper. The moment she opened the door, Fu Shirui was momentarily stunned by the sight, then said with a hint of awkwardness, you look very good. The two of them went downstairs, got in the car, and arrived at the state-run restaurant in complete silence. To their surprise, the moment they stepped inside, they saw Zhao Yutao. their eyes met, and Zhao Yutao stared at him in utter astonishment. Wenjiang, what are you doing here? This is a very important meeting with the American ambassador. Zhao Wenjiang had no desire to answer him. Zhao Yutao was about to say something more, but swallowed his words upon seeing Fu Shirui and the American ambassador enter. Throughout the entire process, Fu Shirui and the American ambassador conversed in English. At that moment, the ambassador's wife took a bite of the braised pork belly. Her eyes lit up with pleasant surprise as she asked, "How is this dish made?" "It's absolutely delicious." Fu Shirui was uncharacteristically at a loss for words. She had never cooked before and was momentarily at a loss for words, just as the atmosphere was about to turn awkward. Zhao Wenjiang opened his mouth. "Hello, I'm her husband, let me introduce." Chapter 6. Fluent English flowed effortlessly from Zhao Wenjiang's lips. Everyone stared at him in astonishment, their jaws dropping as Zhao Wenjiang answered with unbroken fluency. Was this really the same country bumpkin son the Zhao family had brought back from the countryside? Was this really one of the compound's two infamous good-for-nothings? After Zhao Wenjiang's introduction, the ambassador's wife smiled and praised. "I never imagined fatty meat could be prepared so deliciously." The two began conversing in a friendly manner. Fu Shirui immediately snapped back to attention and, with a smile, picked up where the ambassador left off. The meeting concluded smoothly. All the staff members present had completely changed their opinion of Zhao Wenjiang. Zhao Yutao walked over to Zhao Wenjiang's side, looking at him as if meeting him for the first time, and said with a smile, "Wenjiang, when did you learn a foreign language? I remember you didn't even attend high school, did you?" Zhao Wenjiang glanced at him and uttered just 3 words, "Self-taught." Zhao Yutao's expression stiffened slightly. He stepped forward, pulled Fu Shirui aside, and began speaking to her in hushed tones. In an instant, Fu Shirui's expression turned icy. Zhao Wenjiang was still in the dark until they got home. The moment Fu Shirui closed the door, she confronted him with a grave tone. "How do you know a foreign language?" Sensing something off in her words, Zhao Wenjiang frowned. "What do you mean? You're from the countryside and never even finished high school. How could you possibly speak a foreign language so fluently?" Fu Shirui's demeanor hardened further. "Have you been in contact with people from other countries recently?" She suspects he's a spy. The accusation pierced Zhao Wenjiang's heart like a thorn. A dull ache began to throb in his chest, the realization dawning late. Back then, everyone thought he was good for nothing, unworthy of Fu Shirui, but now, the moment he shows a bit of competence, he's immediately suspected of having ulterior motives. What gives them the right to deny who he is? Is it just because Zhao Yutao can't stand to see him succeed? A dazed look flickered across Zhao Wenjiang's face, then faded away completely. He spoke in a flat, emotionless tone. "What do you want me to say? Do I have to make a fool of myself to live up to your and Zhao Yutao's expectations?" Zhao Wenjiang's dark eyes bore into Fu Shirui's, making her heart skip a beat. She pressed her lips together, instinctively defending Zhao Yutao. Yutao was just raising a reasonable suspicion. Zhao Wenjiang said nothing more to her, but the bitter taste in his mouth was impossible to swallow. He spent a sleepless night. The next day, Zhao Wenjiang arrived for work as usual, only to find that the way everyone looked at him had changed. At lunch, the workers who used to avoid him gathered around, showering him with praise. "Wenjiang, word has gotten around about you hosting the foreign ambassador." "Exactly, I said it all along. Someone as outstanding as Wenjiang would never steal. See, the real thief has been caught." Zhao Wenjiang listened, finding the whole situation rather absurd and ironic. After the meal, Zhao Wenjiang was about to start his shift. The factory director called out to him, wearing a friendly expression, "Comrade Zhao, we've just received a new machine, would you mind helping translate the instruction manual?" Zhao Wenjiang nodded in slight surprise and began translating dutifully. "This is used for threading." The technicians nodded repeatedly in admiration. "Comrade Zhao, you're really impressive. You can actually understand foreign writing. You and Comrade Fu Shirui truly make a diplomatic couple." At that moment, Zhao Wenjiang's heart gave a sudden, heavy thump. It suddenly dawned on him that those 30 years in his past life hadn't been a complete waste. He had gained something after all. After the translation was done, the factory manager sighed repeatedly. "With a talent like this, you're wasted making clothes. You'd have a much brighter future as a translator." Hearing this, Zhao Wenjiang was momentarily stunned. He smiled, then lowered his head to continue operating the machine. Suddenly, his eyes caught the newspaper that was spread out beneath it on the table. A job advertisement caught his attention. Jingfeng Publishing House seeks one in-house translator. Excellent remuneration. Interested parties may apply by mail. Chapter 7. For the rest of the day, Zhao Wenjiang was restless and distracted. That job posting kept turning over and over in his mind. When his shift finally ended, he walked home in a daze, arriving at the foot of his building. For some reason, he stopped in his tracks, given a second chance at life. Was he really going to live the same way all over again? Zhao Wenjiang posed the question to himself, then changed direction and headed for the post office. Only after mailing his letter of self-recommendation to the publisher's address from the newspaper did he return home. That night, Zhao Wenjiang lay in bed. His long-numbed heart stirred with a forgotten beat. Perhaps this time, he could find the meaning of his rebirth. But Zhao Wenjiang waited for several days in a row, yet no reply came. He couldn't help but feel a pang of disappointment. That day, after finishing work and setting the meal on the table, he saw Fu Shirui pull an envelope from a stack of papers. "This letter is for you," she said. "How do you have a reply from a publishing house?" Zhao Wenjiang stepped forward, took the letter, and unfolded it. As he read the contents, his eyes lit up. He looked up with a smile to answer her question. "I applied for a job. The publishing house wants me to come in for an interview the day after tomorrow." That smile made Fu Shirui pause for a moment. It was the first time in days she had seen Zhao Wenjiang smile, and the first time she had heard him speak at such length. The day after tomorrow. Zhao Wenjiang got up early in the morning, picked up the cloth bag he had prepared beforehand, which contained a notebook, a pen, a water bottle, and a lunchbox. After confirming he had everything, Zhao Wenjiang headed out. But the moment he stepped out of the compound and onto the main road, a familiar shout rang out, "Stop right there." Whipping his head around, Zhao Wenjiang saw a figure charging straight toward him, with Zhao Yutao in hot pursuit. Zhao Wenjiang's eyes widened in alarm. Just as he was about to dodge out of the way, he heard Zhao Yutao yell, "Wenjiang, cut her off." Hearing this, the man's expression twisted with rage, and he charged straight at Zhao Wenjiang. Before Zhao Wenjiang could react, the man grabbed him by the collar, pressed a knife to his vulnerable throat, and dragged him backward. "Don't come any closer, or I'll kill this man." That shout brought everyone in the vicinity running. The cold steel of the blade pressed against his warm skin, and Zhao Wenjiang paled with fear. He didn't want to die now. He still had a job interview to get to. Zhao Wenjiang swallowed hard and tried to reason with him, "Just stay calm." But the assailant wasn't listening. Cornered by the crowd, he wildly brandished his knife. "Get back, all of you." Zhao Wenjiang was about to try reasoning with him when he heard Zhao Yutao declare with righteous indignation, "He's a military family member. You'd better let him go. It might help reduce your sentence." Those words instantly provoked the assailant. He swung the knife, pointing the tip directly at Zhao Wenjiang's throat. Just as it seemed blood was about to be spilled, a dark figure rushed from behind and subdued the attacker. Amid the chaos, Zhao Wenjiang got a clear look at the newcomer. It was Shintong. She had saved him again. Zhao Wenjiang was shoved to the ground by the struggling assailant. A sharp pain shot through him. His vision went black, and he lost consciousness. Zhao Wenjiang came to again, finding himself in the clinic. His gaze fell upon a stark white ceiling, and to his surprise, Fu Shirui was sitting beside him. He was dazed for a moment before snapping to attention, frantically searching for his bag as he asked, "Where are my things? I still have an interview to get to." The next moment, Fu Shirui placed her hands on his shoulders and said gravely, "Just rest." "The publishing house called, they said." Zhao Wenjiang looked at her, a sense of foreboding settling in his heart. Then, from Fu Shirui's thin lips came the words, "They said they've already found a suitable candidate." Chapter 8, They've found someone. The news hit Zhao Wenjiang like a thunderbolt. In that instant, his expression was one of utter helplessness and confusion. He looked into Fu Shirui's eyes, his voice trembling as he asked, "How is that possible? Are you sure you heard correctly?" Jingfeng Publishing House was the largest, and indeed the only, publishing house in the capital that required translation services. If we miss this chance, who knows when the next one will come? That was his hope. To think we missed him in such a dramatic fashion. With a complicated expression, Fu Shirui comforted him. "It's all right. We can try other publishers." Zhao Wenjiang was beyond listening. At that moment, the door opened. Zhao Yutao entered, carrying a bag of fruit, his tone apologetic. "Wenjiang, I'm so sorry for getting you hurt. Are you feeling any better?" Hearing that voice, the reason for everything that had happened suddenly came flooding back to Zhao Wenjiang. His eyes reddened as he glared at Zhao Yutao and demanded, "Why did you have to call for me back then?" Zhao Yutao was taken aback. A surge of fury erupted from Zhao Wenjiang's heart. The grievances from this life and the last all boiling over in that instant. He pressed on sharply, you only needed to go a little further to call for the police. There were so many people on the street you could have called out to, why did it have to be me? Zhao Yutao bit his lip, hanging his head in apology. I'm sorry, Wenjiang, go ahead, yell at me. This act of Zhao Yutao's, so willing to accept his scolding and blows, filled Zhao Wenjiang with utter disgust, in this life and the last. He was always like this, the moment he did something wrong, he'd immediately bow his head and apologize, only to stubbornly repeat the same mistakes next time. Zhao Wenjiang let out a bitter, mirthless laugh. It was the first time since his rebirth that he had let his emotions show so plainly. A thick layer of mockery surfaced in his eyes. You think a simple apology can make up for what you did it on purpose. Before he could finish, Fu Shirui cut him off with a cold voice, enough. Why must you be so aggressive? That pointed question pierced right through Zhao Wenjiang's fury, instantly leaving him speechless. Zhao Wenjiang glanced at Zhao Yutao, then at Fu Shirui. The anger on his face gradually faded, replaced by an inscrutable, mocking expression. In a flat, emotionless tone, he said, everyone out, I need to rest. Fu Shirui frowned, studying him for a few seconds, before finally leading Zhao Yutao out of the room. With a soft click, the door closed. Zhao Wenjiang sat on the hospital bed, a knot of bitter resentment lodged in his chest with no outlet. Early the next morning, the loudspeaker on the street crackled to life. Comrades, in recognition of Comrade Zhao Yutao's timely discovery and assistance in apprehending the robber, he is hereby commended and rewarded. Zhao Wenjiang's hand clenched the bedsheet in a white-knuckled grip. It felt like an eternity before the grating words of praise finally ceased. Suddenly, the door swung open again. Zhao Wenjiang turned around to see Zhao Yutao entering once more, this time carrying a paper bag adorned with a large red flower. Zhao Yutao placed the item by the bedside, offering a smile. Wenjiang, this is the gift I received from the commendation, please accept it as my apology. Zhao Wenjiang stared at him coldly, saying nothing. Seeing this, Zhao Yutao let out a heavy sigh. Wenjiang, if you want to blame me, I have nothing to say. But have you ever considered that even if you had gone to the publishing house interview, you might not have been selected? Zhao Wenjiang continued to ignore him, and Zhao Yutao could no longer maintain his composure. He lingered for a few more minutes before leaving on his own. The door was slightly ajar, letting the nurse's conversation drift in from the hallway. Was that Comrade Zhao from the broadcast announcement earlier? He's so handsome. Good looks and a helpful nature. Any woman who marries him would be very lucky. I heard that he and Comrade Fu Shirui from the Foreign Affairs Office used to be an item. If that patient in bed 13 hadn't come between them, they'd probably be married by now. At this point, Zhao Wenjiang could barely suppress a scornful laugh. The conversation outside continued. Don't say that. Patient in bed 13 is quite pitiful too. Comrade Fu Shirui is rather cold towards him. He's getting what he deserves. But if I were living a life like that, I'd rather get a divorce. Anything is better than suffering like that. Divorce. The two words hit Zhao Wenjiang like a thunderbolt. He jolted, as if something had pierced through a fog, and a thought he'd never had before surfaced in his mind. That night, Zhao Wenjiang tossed and turned in his hospital bed. The word divorce kept grinding through his mind. It wasn't until daybreak that he finally made up his mind. He was going to leave her. He had to get out. Zhao Wenjiang waited right outside the doctor's office. The moment the doctor arrived for work, he couldn't wait to ask, Doctor, am I cleared to be discharged? Once discharged, he planned to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to inquire about divorce proceedings. The doctor gave him a puzzled look. Patient in bed 13, Zhao Wenjiang. Zhao Wenjiang nodded. Perfect timing. Your test results are ready. Here you go. Zhao Wenjiang took the report, his lips parting as if he still had questions. The next moment, the doctor handed him another report, and the name Fu Shirui was clearly printed on it. Why did she get tested? Before Zhao Wenjiang could even process what was happening, he heard the doctor's words. Take good care of your wife after she's discharged. Comrade Fu is pregnant. You should learn more about prenatal care. Chapter 9, Pregnant. Zhao Wenjiang felt as if he'd been struck by lightning. In disbelief, he opened the report. The glaring result was a painful sight for his eyes. How is this possible? In their previous life, she didn't get pregnant until a full year after marrying Fu Shirui. Why has it changed this time? Zhao Wenjiang's vision swam, and a crushing weight settled on his chest, making it impossible to breathe. He returned to the ward as if his soul had left his body. His mind was a chaotic mess, unable to form a coherent thought. As he lay on the bed, a ring of moisture unconsciously welled up around his eyes. He still remembered that in his past life, Fu Shirui had given birth to a daughter, full of resentment and reluctance. Not long after, the child was taken away by Fu Shirui's parents. The reason for taking her away was Zhao Wenjiang's poor character. They were afraid he would be a bad influence on the child. After that, he was only allowed to see his daughter once a month. From then on, the relationship between father and daughter grew increasingly distant. Zhao Wenjiang instinctively clenched his fist. He stood as still as a statue, yet, memories of his daughter from a past life kept flooding his mind. Daddy, I don't want to be apart from you. Daddy, why does everyone say you're no good? Dad, no matter what anyone else says about you, you'll always be the best father to me. After a long while, Zhao Wenjiang shifted his stiffened body, a flash of understanding dawning in his eyes. He hoped Fu Shirui would keep the child. This time, he would keep his daughter by his side, protect her as she grew, and make her the happiest little princess in the world. The next day, Zhao Wenjiang was discharged from the hospital and returned home. Fu Shirui was waiting for him at the door, looking at her figure. Zhao Wenjiang hesitated for a moment before finally speaking up. Your test results are back, you're pregnant. Fu Shirui froze, looking at him in surprise. Pregnant? He had expected her to be indifferent, but to his astonishment, Zhao Wenjiang caught a fleeting glimpse of delight in her eyes. He felt a bit dazed, yet in her past life, Fu Shirui had been so averse to the arrival of this child. In the days that followed, something even stranger happened. Fu Shirui actually started picking him up after work, acting as if she wanted to build a relationship with him. This left Zhao Wenjiang utterly bewildered. One day, Fu Shirui even came home and handed him a book, saying with some awkwardness, "This is for you. It will be a great help with your translation work." Zhao Wenjiang took it in a daze, murmuring softly, "Thank you." In that moment, they truly seemed like an ordinary married couple. Then, she heard Fu Shirui say, "I asked for you. Jingfeng Publishing will be hiring another translator next year. You can probably go for the interview around the time I have the baby." Zhao Wenjiang was even more stunned. He was stunned for a long moment before it finally sank in. Unable to contain his excitement, he asked her, "Really?" Seeing his joyful reaction, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched Fu Shirui's lips as she replied softly, "Yes." 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. These days had been remarkably peaceful. The relationship between Zhao Wenjiang and Fu Shirui had thawed considerably, and it seemed everything was moving in a positive direction. But to his surprise, in just one weekend, the rumor had already spread throughout the entire government compound. Completely unaware, Zhao Wenjiang returned home from work as usual that day. As soon as he opened the door, he saw his father, mother, Zhao Yutao, and Fu Shirui sitting in the living room. The atmosphere was unusually heavy and tense. With an expression of righteous indignation, Zhao Yutao was the first to speak. "Wenjiang, how could you have an affair?" Zhao Wenjiang was stunned for a moment before snapping angrily, "What on earth are you talking about?" The next moment, Mrs. Zhao snorted coldly, "Someone saw you and Shentong hugging by the old bridge. Is it true?" Hearing this, Zhao Wenjiang understood. Someone was spreading rumors again. Suppressing his anger, he explained calmly, "I didn't. Shentong thought I was going to jump into the lake and grabbed me." Before she could finish, Mother Zhao cut in sharply, "Why on earth would you jump into the lake? Are you saying you're so miserable here that we drove you to it? Search your conscience. Haven't we been good enough to you? Yet you keep pulling these shameful stunts. How are we supposed to show our faces in public?" Every word struck Zhao Wenjiang to the core. Realizing it was pointless to argue with him, Zhao Wenjiang turned his gaze to Fu Shirui and asked in a low, grave voice, "Do you trust me?" But Fu Shirui's response made his heart sink like a stone. "I'm going to get rid of this child." Chapter 10, Get rid of it. Zhao Wenjiang stared at Fu Shirui in disbelief, only to meet the icy coldness in her eyes. That frigid gaze cut through him like a knife, severing the last shred of hope he had held for her all these days. A chill ran through his entire body. Then, Mrs. Zhao chimed in, "Exactly. This child cannot be kept. He's already gotten involved with another woman. He must be taught a lesson." Zhao Yutao, however, frowned in disapproval. "Mom, Dad, that's not right. This is Wenjiang and Shirui's child. We should at least ask Wenjiang for his opinion." The situation, which had just begun to calm down, erupted again. Zhao Yutao's well-intentioned remark was like a drop of water hitting a hot oil pan, instantly reigniting everyone's emotions. Ask him what? How could he have the nerve to expect Shirui to bear his child? Is he even worthy? "You disgraceful wretch, old mister." Zhao grabbed Zhao Wenjiang's hand and dragged him to the table, barking, hurry up and sign the consent form, we'll have Shirui get the abortion immediately. Zhao Wenjiang stumbled from the force of the pull, nearly falling over. He stared at the abortion consent form on the table, his hand clenching into a tight fist. I won't sign it, this was his child. The words his daughter had spoken in their past life still echoed in his ears. There was no way he could ever abandon her. You refused to sign. This finally pushed Mr. Zhao over the edge. A fierce expression twisted his face. You're beyond redemption. I'll act as if I never had such a disgraceful son. From this day forward, we sever all ties as father and son. Hearing this, Zhao Wenjiang's body gave an involuntary shudder. He lifted his gaze, sweeping it from the fierce Zhao family to the cold, indifferent Fu Shirui. With a final shred of hope, he asked her, you really don't believe me? Fu Shirui only replied coldly, how can you expect me to trust you? In that moment, Zhao Wenjiang seemed to see a vision of her from his past life. He gave a bitter smile. Fu Shirui, you're truly terrifying. She never loved him, yet in her past life, she endured 30 years by his side. She watched him spiral into madness, watched him lose himself. Forever a cold and detached spectator, silently observing as he sank into the mire. For this woman, Zhao Wenjiang's heart had turned to stone. Without a word, he picked up the pen. Just as everyone thought he was about to sign, he flipped over the abortion consent form to reveal the blank page on the back. He then raised his hand and forcefully scrawled several large lines of text. When he finished, Zhao Wenjiang tossed the paper aside and stared at them. I have nothing to do with you people anymore, he said. You can leave. Zhao's father bent down and picked up the paper to look at it. It read, Letter of Severance. From this day forward, I, Zhao Wenjiang, sever all ties with every member of the Zhao family. The Zhao family has shown me no kindness in raising or educating me. Henceforth, all bonds are broken. I have no obligation to support the Zhao family in their old age. And no familial relationship of any kind exists. Mr. Zhao was so furious he nearly fell over backwards. You stubborn fool. With that, he grabbed Zhao Wenjiang by the wrist, dragged him into a room, and locked the door with a sharp click. Since you refuse to sign, then so be it. Shirui has the right to decide whether to keep this child or not. Zhao Wenjiang was shoved so hard he almost lost his balance. By the time he turned around to try and stop them, it was already too late. He could only pound on the door and shout, let me out, but there was no response. Then, from outside the door, he heard Zhao Yutao's words, which sounded full of concern. Dad, that's Wenjiang and Shirui's child after all. He's bound to be reluctant. Don't push him. Old man Zhao's furious scolding rang out once more. Force him. He's brought utter disgrace to the Zhao family and committed such a despicable act. He's completely unworthy of Shirui. A moment later, Old man Zhao's voice sounded again. Let him be. The child is in Shirui's belly. After all, you take Shirui to the clinic tomorrow. Each word struck Zhao Wenjiang like a physical blow. The Zhao family had always hoped that Fu Shirui would marry Zhao Yutao. He let out a bitter, self-mocking laugh, filled with resentment and helplessness, yet utterly powerless to change anything. His heart plunged into a bottomless abyss. But upon hitting rock bottom, Zhao Wenjiang found an unexpected calm. He clenched his fists tightly. He's going to run. He's getting out of here. He's leaving for good, and never coming back. Late at night, raindrops pattered pitter-patter against the window pane. In the dead of night, Zhao Wenjiang slipped away and boarded a long-distance bus bound for G-City. The bus pulled away. The tension in Zhao Wenjiang's heart finally began to ease. Once he left this place, no one would ever be able to control his life again. With that thought, a faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Outside the car window, the rain grew heavier and heavier, so heavy that the headlights could only illuminate the road a single meter ahead, and the car slowed to a crawl. A nameless unease settled over Zhao Wenjiang. He lifted his head to look out into the pitch-black night beyond the window. The accident happened in an instant. With a deafening crash, something massive and heavy slammed into the bus. Not a single cry was heard before the gloomy curtain of rain swallowed everything. The next day dawned. The township health center. Old man Zhao said furiously to the frail Fu Shirui lying in the hospital bed, someone saw my ungrateful son get on a bus with the license plate Jing A89665. My men will grab him the moment he steps off. Fu Shirui pressed her lips together. Gazing silently at the curtain of rain outside the window, Zhao Yutao studied Fu Shirui's expression and ventured cautiously. Who knows when Wenjiang and Shentong got together? If he comes back, will you divorce him? At these words, Fu Shirui's heart clenched abruptly in her chest. A suffocating sense of oppression made it difficult for her to breathe. She touched her lower abdomen, her face pale and etched with a trace of bitterness. Just then, the loudspeaker on the utility pole outside the clinic crackled to life. This is a red rainstorm warning. All citizens are advised to stay indoors if possible and beware of landslides. Hey, who are you? Hearing the word landslides, Fu Shiruwei felt a sudden, inexplicable unease, but right then, the broadcast cut off abruptly, replaced by the sound of a scuffle. Everyone was startled and looked up at the loudspeaker. Then, a sharp, piercing sound came through. Fu Shiruwei's brow furrowed tightly. At that moment, an arrogant voice blared from the speaker. This is Shintong. I leave for a short trip. Only to come back and hear I've been accused of adultery. If I ever set my sights on a man, I'll own up to it fair and square, but I will not stand for being slandered. I am not the other woman. You coward spreading rumors about me, better watch out. Don't let me find you, or you're dead. With a loud thud, the broadcast cut off. Fu Shiruwei's head snapped up, her eyes fixed intently on the loudspeaker. She had misunderstood Zhao Wenjiang. Zhao Wenjiang was completely innocent, yet not only had she distrusted him, she had even considered aborting their child. At that moment, guilt and remorse welled up in her eyes. Fu Shiruwei yanked out the 4-needle and tried to get out of bed. She refused to have the abortion. She was going to Jisha herself to bring Zhao Wenjiang back. Just then, the hospital room door was pounded loudly. Bang, bang, bang. The voice was urgent and heavy, causing Fu Shiruwei's heart to lurch violently in response. Looking up, she saw the door swing open as a guard shouted his report. Sir, there's been a landslide on Route 315. A bus with license plate Jing A89665 has been buried. The commander orders us to provide immediate support. Chapter 11. This devastating news instantly froze Fu Shiruwei in place. She couldn't help but retort. Impossible. The guard was startled and stared at her in confusion. Old Mr. Zhao was also frozen in place, his face suddenly turning deathly pale. Everyone knew that surviving a landslide was a miracle, let alone after all this time. Fu Shiruwei refused to believe it. She couldn't accept that Zhao Wenjiang was dead. Clinging to this conviction, she mustered her strength and followed the relief soldiers to the stretch of road known as Route 315. By then, the rain had stopped. The road was littered with rocks and mud, but there was no sign of the bus. Fu Shiruwei grabbed a passing rescuer and asked urgently, Comrade, were there any survivors from that bus? The person shook their head and pointed to a location. That bus was washed over the cliff. The search and rescue operation is too difficult. We have no choice but to call it off. Call it off. Fu Shiruwei stared at them in disbelief, her voice sharp. How can you call it off? My husband is still in there. Her voice rose to a near-breaking pitch. This was the first time Fu Shiruwei had ever lost her composure like this, under the other person's astonished gaze. She slowly released her grip and wiped her face. I'm sorry, she said, I got too emotional. The other person waved a hand dismissively. It's fine. Under the sympathetic and mournful gazes of the others, Fu Shiruwei slowly walked to the edge of the cliff. Below lay a dense green forest, with no connecting roads in any direction. Another landslide could happen here at any moment. Forcing a rescue attempt would likely just add more bodies to the count without recovering the original ones. Fu Shiruwei knew this, yet she simply couldn't bring herself to accept it. If they gave up the search, Zhao Wenjiang would lose all hope of survival. She had no idea how long she stared, only closing her eyes when they began to ache from the strain. Just then, Zhao Yutao's voice came from behind her. Fu Shiruwei, are you alright? Fu Shiruwei did not turn around. Zhao Yutao walked over to her side. Glancing at her red-rimmed eyes, he offered a gentle consolation. With a cliff this high, the chances of survival are slim. It was his fate. Please, don't grieve too much. After a long silence with no response, Zhao Yutao awkwardly fell quiet. After a moment, the rescue workers began clearing the area. This place could collapse again at any moment. Everyone needs to leave, now. The soldier who had brought Fu Shiruwei approached. Comrade Fu, it's time to go. Fu Shiruwei cast one last heavy look down into the ravine before finally turning and getting into the vehicle. Zhao Yutao followed and sat down beside her. The atmosphere inside the car was heavy and oppressive. Fu Shiruwei could sense Zhao Yutao's gaze lingering on her, as if he had something to say, but she simply didn't have the energy to deal with it anymore. A long time passed. The car pulled into the government compound. Fu Shiruwei got out of the car without a word and returned to her quiet, empty home. With a quick glance around, she suddenly realized there was almost no trace of Zhao Wenjiang's presence in the house. Aside from the bare necessities, there wasn't a single photograph on display in the living room. Fu Shirui pushed open Zhao Wenjiang's door, and a starkly empty room greeted her. Just a single bed and a lone cabinet. The sight made her eyes sting. The place felt more like a cheap motel room than a home. She knew Zhao Wenjiang loved to read, yet there wasn't even a bookshelf in the room. Fu Shirui stood there, murmuring a belated, "I'm sorry," but this apology had come far too late. For the 7 days following the incident, Fu Shirui was absent on leave. The Fu family could wait no longer and rushed to Fu Shirui's home. Mrs. Fu knocked on the door and frowned when no one answered. Mr. Fu grew impatient. "Why keep knocking? Don't you have a key?" Shooting him a glare, Mrs. Fu took out the key and opened the door, immediately hit by the strong smell of alcohol inside. She turned on the light and was stunned by the scene before her. Empty bottles were scattered chaotically across the floor, while Fu Shirui sat motionless in the living room like a wooden post, her eyes cold and distant, lost in thought. Was this still her daughter, the one with a notorious cleanliness obsession? This was all so wrong. Mrs. Fu stepped forward, careful not to upset her, and asked gently, "Are you all right, dear?" Fu Shirui did not respond. Mrs. Fu turned to look at Mr. Fu, her eyes asking, "What should we do?" The latter shook his head, sighed towards Fu Shirui, and said gravely, "We never held a wedding banquet for you two. Now that he's gone, we must at least hold a funeral for him." Chapter 12. Everyone was convinced Zhao Wenjiang was dead. Fu Shirui, however, refused to believe it. After the rain stopped, she joined the search, but Zhao Wenjiang's body was nowhere to be found. Finally, today, the military ceased sending personnel and declared that no one on the vehicle had survived. Her heart was completely broken. Hearing her father's words, Fu Shirui felt a dull ache in her chest. They hadn't even had a wedding ceremony. In the beginning, Fu Shirui hated Zhao Wenjiang. She hated his malicious intent, that he would actually drug her. He left her no choice but to marry him, so she treated Zhao Wenjiang with cold indifference, not even deigning to look at him. But lately, her gaze has been involuntarily drawn to him. Without even realizing it, she began to care, and they even had a child. Just as she finally understood her own feelings and tried to let go of the past to start anew with him, she was suddenly hit by that rumor. In that moment, Fu Shirui's heart turned to ice. She hurt Zhao Wenjiang once more, not even leaving their child behind. By the time she learned the truth and wanted to apologize, it was already too late. After a long while, Fu Shirui's rigid body finally stirred. She slowly raised her head, looked at her parents' worried faces, and uttered a single, hoarse word, "Okay." 2. Zhao Wenjiang's funeral hall. The coffin was empty, and so was the portrait. With his passing, it seemed everyone forgot their previous gossip about Zhao Wenjiang, and instead began speaking of his hardships. Poor Wenjiang, he suffered his whole life. Indeed, the Zhao family and his own wife were so harsh on him. What a tragedy. I heard the Zhao family forced Zhao Wenjiang to divorce Fu Shirui and even signed some abortion consent form. That's why he ran away. He just didn't want to get divorced and lose his child. What's so wrong with that? Tisk tisk tsk. What man would ever agree to his wife aborting their own child? What a shame. Such a good person is gone. The Zhao family is truly despicable. Upon hearing these words, Mr. and Mrs. Zhao stood there, their faces flushed red, unable to utter a word. Only Zhao Yutao was different. He glanced up at Fu Shirui standing beside the coffin, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. It was clearly Fu Shirui who wanted the abortion, so why is all the blame being pinned on us? Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the entrance to the funeral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw Shen Tong marching in, gripping a middle-aged woman by the collar. When Zhao Yutao saw the woman, his pupils contracted sharply. What is she doing here? Just as he was about to slip away unnoticed, he saw Shen Tong haul the woman to the center of the room. Shen jerked her chin at the middle-aged woman and said, "Go on, tell them, why did you spread those rumors about me?" The middle-aged woman was trembling. She glanced around the room, and her eyes happened to meet Zhao Yutao's. In the next instant, her eyes lit up. She raised a hand and pointed. "He's the one who told me he saw you and Zhao Wenjiang hugging by the old bridge." Everyone's gaze followed her pointing finger and landed on Zhao Yutao, who was just trying to make his exit. At the center of attention, Zhao Yutao's face instantly went pale, but he quickly composed himself and snapped, "What nonsense are you talking?" Yet the middle-aged woman insisted it was him who said it. Seeing the odd looks from the people around him, Zhao Yutao began to panic. "Mr. Zhao raised an eyebrow. "So it was you spreading the rumors, Mrs. Zhao also looked at him with disappointment in her eyes. Fu Shirui's gaze, however, was exceptionally cold, so cold it sent a chill straight to Zhao Yutao's core. Zhao Yutao couldn't help but shudder. He took a deep breath before speaking slowly. I did see you and Wenjiang embracing. I wasn't lying. Is telling the truth wrong now? As for the other rumors, I only heard them from others. Shen Tong, standing to the side, frowned and scoffed, her icy gaze fixed on Zhao Yutao. He jumped into the lake. I saved him. It's that simple. Over something like this, you spread rumors about him having an affair, making his wife doubt him, causing the death of an unborn child. No wonder he wanted to jump in the river. Your Zhao family is trying to drive him to his death, making up stories. Anyone can do that. This man is a real operator. He always speaks in ambiguities, so others inevitably read between the lines, but there's just no proof. Even if we know he's been stirring the pot, there's nothing we can do about it. Might as well let him get a taste of his own medicine with some rumors. Zhao Yutao gritted his teeth. I didn't say any of that. Don't you dare try to pin this on me. What reason would I have to spread rumors about Wenjiang? Haven't I always treated him well? The crowd fell into thought. It was true. Zhao Yutao had always seemed quite concerned about Zhao Wenjiang. Shen Tong chuckled, having caught him out. Just because you like Fu Shirui and you're jealous that Zhao Wenjiang married her, weren't you and Fu Shirui rumored to be a couple before? Fu Shirui and Zhao Yutao used to be a couple. This was common knowledge. Zhao Yutao clenched his fist, about to say something, but Fu Shirui's words cut him off first. Zhao Yutao and I have never dated. Chapter 13. As soon as these words were spoken, the room erupted in an uproar. Everyone exchanged bewildered glances. Fu Shirui and Zhao Yutao had never actually been together, so how did the rumor about Zhao Wenjiang breaking them up even start? Fu Shirui continued, I don't know who started these rumors, but if I hear them again, I won't let them get away with it. Zhao Yutao's face instantly drained of color. The crowd's mocking gazes swept over Zhao Yutao. They weren't fools. It was obvious to anyone who gave it a moment's thought. It seemed these rumors were being spread deliberately. As for who it was, everyone knew perfectly well. Zhao Yutao finally couldn't bear those stares any longer. He turned and left, his face pale. The farce was over. Shen Tong was about to leave, but she paused mid-step and turned back to the empty coffin. She stood there for a moment, ignoring Fu Shirui beside her, and slowly took a white flower from her pocket. Taking another look at the coffin, Shen Tong shook her head. How pitiful. Not only is the body gone, but there isn't even a photograph. With that, she tossed the flower into the coffin. Fu Shirui gazed at the flower, her eyes trembling. Then, in a hoarse voice, she said, Thank you for clearing his name. Shen Tong shrugged and replied indifferently, I was only looking out for myself. With that, she left. The funeral was over. Fu Shirui walked home step by step, clutching the empty urn. As soon as she entered the building's entrance, she saw Zhao Yutao standing at her door, apparently waiting for her. Fu Shirui stopped dead in her tracks. Then, without so much as a glance in his direction, she moved past Zhao Yutao and fished out her keys to unlock the door. Zhao Yutao's slightly hoarse voice came from behind. Fu Shirui, I swear I never said those things. You have to believe me. Her hand, poised to open the door, froze mid-air for a moment. Without turning around, Fu Shirui replied coolly, I do believe you. Those words never came from your mouth. Do you really mean that? As he spoke, Zhao Yutao stepped closer, trying to read the expression on Fu Shirui's face. Fu Shirui shot him a sideways glance. Her eyes were as cold as ice. You never said it outright, but you were always fanning the flames. Zhao Wenjiang's face instantly froze. The next sentence sent an even deeper chill through him. Zhao Yutao, don't take me for a fool. With that, Fu Shirui pushed the door open and stepped inside. Zhao Yutao was filled with a bitter mix of resentment and fury, staring at Fu Shirui's retreating back. His voice grew tight. You say I treated you like a fool, but you never denied those rumors yourself, did you? Why does everyone blame me? If Zhao Wenjiang hadn't drugged you, I would have been the one with you. By the end, Zhao Yutao was practically shouting. The only response was the violent slam of a door. The sound made Zhao Yutao flinch and shrink back. He stared for a long moment before finally leaving in bitter frustration. Inside the room, Fu Shirui placed the urn on the table, gazing at it for a long time, lost in thought. Suddenly, those hazy memories came into sharp focus. It was a wedding banquet. She was a bridesmaid, while Zhao Wenjiang had to step in as a groomsman because the original one was delayed on the road. During the wedding festivities, someone offered a toast to Zhao Wenjiang. He couldn't very well refuse, so he forced a stiff, awkward smile. Fu Shirui, feeling inexplicably uneasy watching this, took the glass from his hand and drank it for him. Shortly after, she began to feel feverish all over, and her mind started to grow hazy, but she remembered with perfect clarity that it was Zhao Wenjiang who helped her into the room. After that, her memory became a blur. When she came to, she found herself and Zhao Wenjiang locked in a naked embrace. Furious, Fu Shiruwei threw back the covers and demanded coldly, "Did you drug me, so?" How did Zhao Wenjiang respond? For some inexplicable reason, perhaps due to overwhelming anger, that memory remains stubbornly unclear. I thought about it for a long time, only then did Zhao Wenjiang's expression from that moment finally surface in my mind. He was bewildered and terrified, waving his hands in a feeble, desperate attempt to explain. "It wasn't me," he pleaded. "I saw you weren't feeling well and just wanted to help you to your room to rest, and then you just..." But she wasn't having any of it, cutting him off with an icy tone before he could finish. She snapped, "Do you really think I'd believe that?" Blinded by rage at the time, I didn't give him a chance to explain. Now, thinking back on what Zhao Wenjiang left unsaid, perhaps there's more to this story. At this thought, Fu Shiruwei clenched her fists tightly. It seemed she had to look into it all over again. Chapter 14. A month had passed. Fu Shiruwei questioned each person who had been pushing drinks. But there were too many of them. Some had moved to other cities, and others simply wouldn't admit to it. The investigation was proving incredibly difficult. Then, a new lead emerged. One of the other bridesmaids said, "I think I saw someone put something in the glass." Fu Shiruwei was overjoyed. Who was it? Her name was Lu Ji. When Fu Shiruwei went looking for her, she learned that Lu Ji had died 3 months prior, drunk. She had fallen into the river and drowned, just like that. The lead went cold, but she had a gut feeling that perhaps that glass of liquor had been Lu Ji's way of dealing with Zhao Wenjiang, only to end up drinking it myself. She couldn't help but give a bitter smile. If that's really the case, then Zhao Wenjiang was the victim all along, and they were all the perpetrators. This possible truth weighed heavily on Fu Shiruwei, as a creeping sense of guilt began to spread through her. Every day, Fu Shiruwei would spend some time in Zhao Wenjiang's room. Just as she did when Zhao Wenjiang was still there, she would sit on his stool, gazing quietly through the bluish-green wooden window at the ginkgo leaves dancing in the wind. Sitting there, it felt as if Zhao Wenjiang were still present. But gradually, Fu Shiruwei felt an increasing loneliness, and she no longer dared to enter that room. The moment she stepped inside, her feelings of guilt and loneliness would intensify. Overwhelmed by these emotions, Fu Shiruwei's only desire was to escape, so when her superiors offered an overseas assignment, she accepted without a second thought. 3 years later, 1985, at the U.S. Embassy, Fu Shiruwei sat in her office. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating her figure as she attended to her duties. Just then, an aide hurried in, looking flustered. She reported urgently, "Counselor Fu, there was a large-scale hydrogen balloon explosion in Chinatown 10 minutes ago, resulting in injuries to several of our citizens. A major international incident." Fu Shiruwei shot to her feet, her brow furrowed, and asked in a low, grave voice, "Were there any fatalities?" "The hospital hasn't made an official announcement yet. Everyone's been rushed in for emergency treatment." Upon hearing this, Fu Shiruwei made an immediate decision. "Let's go to the hospital." With that, she strode out. Soon, the car arrived at the hospital. The corridor was filled with victims of the blast, groaning in pain, and there was a clear shortage of medical staff. Fu Shiruwei's brow furrowed even deeper. She turned to the aide following her and said, "Go and tally the number of our wounded. Send people to reassure the civilians and see what help they need. If any reporters show up, notify me immediately." "Understood." The aide acknowledged the order and promptly set about carrying it out. After handling matters in an orderly fashion, the aide returned with some good news. "Counselor, at this hospital, we have 24 of our citizens injured, all with minor wounds. There are no fatalities. Others are at different hospitals, and personnel have already been dispatched to handle those cases." Fu Shiruwei finally let out a sigh of relief. Just then, a group of journalists, shouldering cameras and clutching microphones, arrived at the emergency room. She watched as they attempted to interview the injured patients. Fu Shiruwei shook her head and was about to intervene when she heard a familiar voice say, "I'm sorry, she's not available for an interview right now." A loud crash echoed. It was like a thunderclap exploding beside her ear. Fu Shiruwei snapped her head around to see a dark-haired man of her own nationality standing there, but a throng of reporters blocked her view, and she couldn't make out his face. Step by step, Fu Shiruwei drew closer, and the man's features gradually came into focus. It was a face with sharp, defined angles, as handsome as ever, those eyes, once as still and lifeless as stagnant water, were now clear and gentle, yet held an unmistakable refusal in their depths. Fu Shirui's pupils contracted. It was a face identical to Zhao Wenjiang's. Chapter 15. Fu Shirui's breathing suddenly became ragged. She stared at him without blinking, terrified he might vanish the very next second. Her heart pounded like a war drum in her chest. With each beat of her heart, Fu Shirui took a step closer to Zhao Wenjiang's side. Her voice was hoarse as she uttered, "Zhao Wenjiang." She saw it clearly. Zhao Wenjiang faltered for a moment. Then, he looked over, his gaze as if he were looking at a complete stranger, his polite smile unchanged. "I'm sorry, you've mistaken me for someone else." Mistaken? Fu Shirui stared fixedly at the man before her. It was the same face, she couldn't possibly be mistaken. She took a deep breath and said in a low, steady voice, "I'm a counselor from the embassy. May I see your passport, please?" The man smiled, glanced at her attire, and promptly fished out his passport from his bag, handing it over. Fu Shirui took it. The moment she opened it, the name on the page made her freeze, Fang Jinyan. It wasn't Zhao Wenjiang's name. Fu Shirui's expression slowly hardened. She lifted her gaze and handed the passport back. "Thank you for your cooperation." His voice was hoarse and dry. Fang Jinyan accepted it with a smile, his tone polite yet distant. "I'll be going now. Then, goodbye." With those words, he entered the hospital room. Lying in the bed was his subordinate. Upon seeing Zhao Wenjiang enter, the man immediately clutched his head and groaned, "Boss, does this count as a work-related injury?" Fang Jinyan shook his head helplessly. "Don't worry, I'll get it reimbursed for you." Hearing this, her headache seemed to vanish, and she immediately switched to work mode. "What rotten luck. We were all set to discuss the copyright today, and then this had to happen." Zhao Wenjiang pressed his lips together, offering reassurance. "It's fine. Just focus on recovering. This matter isn't urgent." He stepped out of the hospital room and stood in the corridor, his gaze sweeping the area, but he didn't see Fu Shirui anywhere. Zhao Wenjiang let out a slow, heavy breath and made his way to the bathroom, staring at his own reflection in the mirror. A dazed look came over his face. He was both Zhao Wenjiang and Fang Jinyan. 3 years ago, the bus was caught in a mudslide, and heavy rocks crashed into its body. The vehicle flipped over instantly, because he was wearing a seatbelt. He absorbed less of the impact. Driven by the will to survive, he smashed the window and escaped. He even managed to rescue a boy in the process. On that rainy night, they supported each other as they made their way out of the mountains, finally collapsing at the entrance of the clinic. When he awoke, he was met with the boy's delighted face. "Brother, you're finally awake." Zhao Wenjiang was dazed for a moment before the memories of what happened came flooding back. "We're alive," Zhao Wenjiang murmured. The boy gripped his hand and nodded firmly. "Yeah, we're saved." Then, his expression turned hesitant, but he gritted his teeth and said, "Brother, you're hurt." Zhao Wenjiang froze, a dull ache throbbing in his chest. His hand went instinctively to his chest. In the haze of that mountain wilderness, a sudden, visceral certainty washed over him. The child in Fu Shirui's womb was gone. In his dazed state, he could faintly hear a child's whisper in his ear, "Daddy, you're going to be okay." This life of his was a gift from that child. A single tear welled up and fell, followed by another, and then another. It was only after being discharged from the hospital that Zhao Wenjiang found out. Because he was unconscious and couldn't communicate, the boy had used his own brother's identity to admit him. At that time, there were no ID cards. People relied on letters of introduction and household registration booklets to verify their identity. The boy's name is Fang Rui, and his older brother is called Fang Jinyan. Their parents passed away not long ago, leaving only the 2 brothers. With no savings at home and to avoid starvation, they decided to seek work at a place recommended by a village matchmaker. Little did they know that an accident would occur on the journey. At this point in the story, Fang Rui was in tears. His brother was lost forever in that mudslide. Zhao Wenjiang patted his head and, worried he would cry himself sick, led him to a small diner. The 2 of them went to the diner to eat. Soon, the food arrived. 1 meat dish, 1 vegetable dish, and a soup. Fang Rui ate in big mouthfuls, tears streaming down his face. Zhao Wenjiang advised gently, "Slow down, don't choke. If you don't mind, I could be your big brother from now on." And so, Zhao Wenjiang became Fang Jinyan. Chapter 16, The Embassy. Inside the office, Fu Shirui stared down at the documents, but hadn't turned a page for a long while. After a long pause, she summoned her aide and instructed, "Bring me the file on someone named Fang Jinyan." The file was promptly delivered. Fang Jinyan, a native of Beijing, is an orphan with one younger brother under his care. In 1982, he began working at the Lusher Translation Publishing House. Within just 3 years, his exceptional talent propelled him to the position of editor-in-chief. His current trip to the United States is to discuss copyright matters with an author. The documentation appears to be in order. Isn't it all just a bit too convenient? Both Zhao Wenjiang and Fang Jinyan speak a foreign language. A thought began to take shape in my mind. Zhao Wenjiang isn't dead. He must have found some other way to assume Fang Jinyan's identity. After paying the bill at the hospital, Zhao Wenjiang returned to the hotel. As soon as he pushed the door open, he saw Fang Ruwei staring intently at the television. Seeing Zhao Wenjiang return, he immediately sprang to his feet. "Bro, are you okay? I saw on the news there was a balloon explosion in Chinatown." Zhao Wenjiang walked over and ruffled his hair. "I'm fine, but Zhangya got a bit banged up. Things are a bit chaotic lately. Don't go out by yourself. I'll pick you up to go have some fun once I'm done with this meeting." Fang Ruwei nodded obediently. Early in the morning, Zhao Wenjiang rushed to the hospital. After confirming that Zhangya was fine, he checked her out, and the two of them immediately headed for the publishing house. Rose didn't show up. Instead, it was his agent, Helen, who came. As soon as she sat down, the blonde, blue-eyed beauty greeted him warmly. "Hi, darling, I'm Helen." After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Zhao Wenjiang got straight to the point. "Our publishing house is a great admirer of Rose's work. We'd like to acquire the Chinese publishing rights for his book, Eternal Night." Helen thought for a moment, then said with an apologetic look, "Darling, I'd love to work with you, but to be honest, the market in your country just isn't viable." Zhao Wenjiang's heart sank like a stone. It was a polite refusal in disguise. Just as he tried to speak, Helen delivered another crushing blow. "I hear even education is a problem in your country. Who would spend money on novels? Besides, our Rose is very protective of her reputation. It would be a disaster if it were tarnished by a poor translation." These questions were sharp and cutting. When someone asks a question, they naturally expect a satisfactory answer. Zhao Wenjiang took a deep breath and pulled a document from his bag. "This is a small section we've attempted to translate. Please take a look at our capabilities." Helen, who understood Chinese, immediately began to review it herself. "In the Eternal Night, there is no light. Eternal Night is a love story about a man and a woman who defy societal conventions to be together, ultimately meeting a tragic end as lovers." The book later gained immense popularity domestically and was eventually adapted for the big screen, becoming a classic of the stage. Knowing full well the book's profit potential, Zhao Wenjiang was naturally determined to secure its rights. After a while, Helen skimmed through the document, fell into a brief contemplation, and then her tone softened a little. "I'll have Rose take a look first. If it's acceptable, I'll be in touch." "It looks like there's still hope." Zhao Wenjiang didn't say much more. After saying his goodbyes, he left. Zhangya walked alongside Zhao Wenjiang, glanced at him, and asked, "Boss, how much longer do we have to wait? Our business visas are about to expire." Zhao Wenjiang pursed his lips and laid down an ultimatum. 3 days. If we haven't closed the deal in 3 days, we're going back home." The two of them returned to the hotel. Zhangya, being closer to the stairs, entered her room first. While Zhao Wenjiang's room required turning a corner, as luck would have it, an unexpected visitor stood at the door. Chapter 17. Zhao Wenjiang was stunned for a moment. After 3 years, Fu Shirui's presence had grown even more formidable. Zhao Wenjiang wanted to pretend he didn't know her, but she was blocking the doorway, clearly there for him, making it impossible to keep up the act. He offered a distant smile. "Can I help you, compatriot?" Fu Shirui gave him a heavy look. "Zhao Wenjiang, identity theft is a crime." Hearing that, Zhao Wenjiang knew he was exposed. He knew that Fu Shirui was currently serving as a U.S. attaché. Given his frequent travels between the two countries, it was highly likely their paths would cross, but his worry was short-lived. Knowing Fu Shirui's way of doing things, she would undoubtedly ignore him. After all, she utterly despised him, yet, he never expected that she would go so far as to investigate his identity and even follow him to the hotel. Zhao Wenjiang pursed his lips, his tone cool and detached. "Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about." He was still refusing to admit it. Fu Shirui fell silent for a moment before speaking plainly. "Those rumors have all been cleared up. You don't need to worry anymore." Rumors. Hearing those two words, Zhao Wenjiang was instantly transported back to those suffocating days. It was like a wound that never truly healed. Every mention of it felt like someone was brutally ripping the scar open. It hurt, it really, really hurt. A shadow passed over Zhao Wenjiang's eyes. He immediately looked up, meeting Fu Shirui's gaze directly and cutting her off. That has nothing to do with Fang Jinyan. If that's what you came here to say, then you can leave. Zhao Wenjiang's blunt words left Fu Shirui frozen in place. She glanced at Zhao Wenjiang, her eyes dark and inscrutable, holding an emotion he couldn't decipher. Fortunately, Fu Shirui didn't press the issue any further. She left without a word. Zhao Wenjiang took a deep breath, trying to suppress the surge of bitter emotion welling up inside him. After a long moment, his expression now blank, he moved to open the door. Before he could even open the door, he heard Fang Rui shouting from inside. "Don't come in, I have a gun." Zhao Wenjiang was stunned for a moment, then quickly responded, "It's me, your brother." Soon, the sound of hurried footsteps came from within. Fang Rui poked his head out, his eyes scanning the area warily. "Where's that woman from just now?" Zhao Wenjiang watched his cautious demeanor and gave an approving nod. "Good, very alert, keep it up, she's gone," Zhao Wenjiang said, pushing the door open. He asked Fang Rui, "Did she say anything?" Fang Rui swallowed hard. "She seemed to know you. She kept asking about what happened to you after the mudslide, but I kept my mouth shut, didn't say a word." Zhao Wenjiang nodded and patted his head. "Good." With that, he stepped past him to pour himself a glass of water. From behind, Fang Rui's question came, "Bro, who is she?" His hand, pouring the water, paused for a moment before he continued to fill the glass. Zhao Wenjiang held the cup, turned around, and chuckled softly. "My ex-wife." Fang Rui's jaw went slack in surprise. Then, as if something clicked, his expression cleared with sudden understanding. "No wonder she asked me if you had a wife, and whether you were married or not. Surviving a disaster of that magnitude is nothing short of a miracle. What's the point of talking about the past now? It's all in the past now." Zhao Wenjiang gave a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes, his gaze distant and detached. Suddenly, he remembered the child from all those years ago. She was the one who chose to leave him behind. That child could have been born. A sudden, sharp pang struck his heart for the unborn child, yet Zhao Wenjiang's expression remained placid, as if he felt no pain at all. What's done is done. He is Fang Jinyan now. Everything about Zhao Wenjiang vanished with that mudslide. Night fell. "The negotiations will take another 3 days. I can take my younger brother out during this time." After washing up, Zhao Wenjiang called out to Fang Rui, who was still in bed, "We're going back in 3 days. Where would you like to go tomorrow?" Chapter 18, Fang Rui cheered. "Hooray, we finally get to go out and have some fun." Zhao Wenjiang chuckled, "Get to sleep now, or you won't be able to get up tomorrow." With that, Zhao Wenjiang lay down on the bed, while Fang Rui left a small lamplit on the bedside table. Ever since that accident, Fang Rui has been terrified of the dark, so he always leaves a light on when he sleeps. Even after lying down, he was restless, wriggling closer until he was pressed tightly against him. Zhao Wenjiang let him be, closing his eyes and trying to fall asleep. Then, Fang Rui's soft, comforting voice whispered in his ear, "Don't be sad, brother. It's all in the past now." Zhao Wenjiang's nose instantly stung with emotion. This was a phrase Zhao Wenjiang had often used to comfort him in the past. They had both lost their last remaining family in that accident, and every night, Fang Rui would hide under the covers and cry silently. Once, by chance, Zhao Wenjiang discovered it. Without a second thought, he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around the small figure, patting his back gently. "It's all over now," he soothed. 3 years had passed. The two had long since become as close as family. The little 10-year-old boy from back then had now grown into a young man, with eyes slightly reddened. Zhao Wenjiang pulled him into a hug, patting his back as he always did. "Time for bed, little brother." Gradually, a deep quiet settled over the room. The next day, the sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. Zhao Wenjiang, Zhang Ye, and Fang Rui arrived at the beach, wearing sunglasses. Zhao Wenjiang sank into a deck chair and gazed quietly at the vast, endless sea. Zhang Ye was lounging on the chair beside him, letting out a contented sigh. "This is heavenly. If only every business trip could be this comfortable." Zhao Wenjiang ignored her, shifting his gaze to Fang Rui, who was happily collecting seashells on the beach. "Fang Rui, don't wander off too far." "Okay." Hearing his reply, Zhao Wenjiang smiled with affection. He was having quite a good time on his own. The June sun was warm, and Zhao Wenjiang closed his eyes to soak it in. Without realizing it, he dozed off for a while, his mind drifting in and out of consciousness, where he could faintly hear Feng Rui's playful laughter. Suddenly, the sound cut off. Alarm bells went off in Zhao Wenjiang's mind. He snapped his eyes open, but Feng Rui was nowhere to be seen. In an instant, all the surrounding sounds vanished. Where was Feng Rui? He shot to his feet, his voice strained as he shouted, "Feng Rui! Feng Rui!" In his utter terror, his voice was hoarse and quivered faintly. Zhang Ye sat up as well. "What's wrong? Feng Rui is gone." Their eyes met, both filled with sheer dread. Zhao Wenjiang immediately called the police and contacted the embassy. For the rest of the time, they scoured the entire beach but found no sign of Feng Rui. Zhao Wenjiang stared blankly ahead, his eyes rimmed with red. He looked utterly despondent. Fu Shirui's heart ached at the sight. She parted her lips, wanting to say something, but she suddenly realized that any words of comfort now would only be like rubbing salt in the wound. Pressing her lips together, she chose instead to turn and speak with the police. 3 hours later, the police sent word. A witness claims to have seen an Asian boy in a car with 2 men. They are currently canvassing vehicles in the area. Fu Shirui relayed the news to Zhao Wenjiang. Sitting in a chair at the police station, Zhao Wenjiang remained completely motionless. At the news, his head snapped up, a flicker of life returning to his vacant eyes. "Really?" Fu Shirui nodded and handed him a burger. "Here, eat something. We've got a tough fight ahead." Chapter 19. Zhao Wenjiang glanced at Fu Shirui. Her cool, elegant features remained unchanged, yet her eyes held a firm and reassuring strength. It was just like her diplomatic declaration on television in a past life. "Our nation's territory is sacred and inviolable. Certain countries should stop feigning ignorance." For some inexplicable reason, she possessed an inherently convincing power. After a long pause, Zhao Wenjiang slowly took it, his voice hoarse and strained. "Thank you." Zhao Wenjiang ate the food bite by bite, the emptiness in his stomach beginning to subside. The chill that had gripped his body started to recede. Just then, the walkie-talkie clipped to Fu Shirui's belt crackled to life. "Counselor, we have a lead. The subject is in room 106 of the Puth apartment. The police are already on their way to attempt a rescue." "Okay, I'll be right there," Fu Shirui replied. Zhao Wenjiang's eyes lit up instantly. He sprang to his feet and grabbed the hem of Fu Shirui's jacket. "I'm coming too." "Alright, let's go." With that, Fu Shirui strode out. Zhao Wenjiang hurried after him, breaking into a light jog to catch up. The sedan sped swiftly down the road. Soon, the two of them arrived at Puth's apartments. A ring of police cars had already cordoned off the outside, and a team of officers had stormed inside. A heavy silence hung over the entire scene. The moment Zhao Wenjiang stepped out of the car, he heard a loud bang. A gunshot rang out from the apartment building. His pupils contracted, his heart leapt into his throat, and he stared with intense anxiety at the 5-story apartment building. Time seemed to stretch on forever, yet also crawl by. Police officers emerged from the main entrance. Zhao Wenjiang scanned the scene anxiously, searching for Feng Rui. In the next instant, he saw one of the detectives behind him supporting a bloodied Asian boy. At the sight of the blood, Zhao Wenjiang's own blood ran cold. He tried to step forward, but stumbled and nearly fell. The next moment, a strong hand steadied him. "Your brother will be fine, let's go see." Zhao Wenjiang could no longer hear what Fu Shirui was saying. Leaning on the support, he walked over and saw the boy's face. It wasn't Feng Rui. A look of utter bewilderment flashed across Zhao Wenjiang's face. He glanced sideways at Fu Shirui, his eyes fixed intently on her. "This isn't Feng Rui." Hearing this, Fu Shirui frowned. Could they have gotten it wrong? Zhao Wenjiang thought the same, overwhelmed by the intense emotion. He felt on the verge of fainting, in a daze. He thought he heard Feng Rui's voice calling out, "Brother." Like a puppet, he turned his head slowly, frame by frame, and saw an Asian boy wrapped in a large towel smiling at him. "Bro." Against the sunlight, his youthful face gradually came into focus. It was Feng Rui. Zhao Wenjiang's eyes flew wide open. In the next instant, his body lunged forward before his mind could even catch up. Only when the warm body was pulled into his embrace did the reality truly sink in for Zhao Wenjiang. Feng Rui was alive. A single tear fell, soaking into the towel. It took Zhao Wenjiang a long while to compose himself before he took the unusually well-behaved Feng Rui to thank everyone, one by one, until they came to stand before Fu Shirui. Zhao Wenjiang looked into her eyes, fell silent for a moment, and then said slowly, "Thank you." Truly, he was well aware, if it weren't for Fu Shirui's mediation, the U.S. Police department wouldn't have mobilized so quickly, this was a favor he owed. Fu Shirui shook her head, it's nothing, I'm just glad your brother is safe. By the time the statement was finished, it was already late at night. As Zhao Wenjiang led Feng Ruwei out of the police station's main entrance, he saw Fu Shirui leaning against a sedan, waiting. In the pitch-black night, her head was bowed, and Zhao Wenjiang couldn't make out the expression on her face. He paused for a moment, then took Feng Rui's hand and went over. Hearing the footsteps, Fu Shirui slowly looked up at them. A faint smile touching her lips, get in, she said, I'll drive you home. Zhao Wenjiang didn't refuse and got into the back seat. The car moved along at a steady, unhurried pace. In the quiet car, Feng Ruwei, utterly exhausted, had fallen asleep leaning against Zhao Wenjiang's shoulder. Zhao Wenjiang's eyelids grew heavy, and he was on the verge of drifting off himself. In his drowsy state, he heard someone calling his name, Zhao Wenjiang. The voice was faint, almost as if it had drifted into his ear. As if bewitched, Zhao Wenjiang responded in a low voice, As the word left his lips, his muddled mind suddenly cleared. He realized the car had stopped at some point. Zhao Wenjiang abruptly lifted his gaze, meeting Fu Shirui's eyes, which were as deep and unfathomable as a dark pool. The beautiful woman watched him in the dim light of the car, a distant, wistful smile playing on her lips. Zhao Wenjiang, she said, it's been 3 years. Chapter 20. Fu Shirui didn't finish her sentence. But Zhao Wenjiang didn't want to hear any more. Since he was already exposed, there was no point in keeping up the act. Besides, he still owed her a favor. Let's keep things separate. Zhao Wenjiang took a deep breath, averted his gaze, and said slowly, thank you, truly. If you ever need my help in the future, just say the word. Also, the old Zhao Wenjiang is dead. I'm not your husband anymore. You're free now. Free to go and find your true love. He let out the breath he was holding. Zhao Wenjiang's heart finally settled back into place. Having said that much, Fu Shirui probably wouldn't press the issue of identity any further. Right, there was no response for a long time. Sensing something was off, Zhao Wenjiang looked at Fu Shirui, only to see she had turned her body back, her expression unreadable. His gaze flicked to the rearview mirror, where her beautiful face looked even colder in the dim light. Zhao Wenjiang pressed his lips together, unsure of what she meant. Suddenly, Fu Shirui started the car. The rest of the journey passed in complete silence. In the overwhelmingly oppressive atmosphere, Zhao Wenjiang instinctively held his breath. In his past life, such situations were far from uncommon. Sometimes, it's not just words that wound, it's the icy, suffocating chill of indifference that truly takes your breath away. Soon, the car pulled up to the inn. Zhao Wenjiang practically flung the car door open in a panic, hoisting Feng Ruwei onto his shoulder as he prepared to get out, but the boy had grown, and Zhao Wenjiang struggled with his weight, getting himself wedged in the car doorway. Fortunately, Feng Ruwei woke up. He obediently slid off Zhao Wenjiang's back, stepped out of the car first, with Zhao Wenjiang following right behind him. Turning around, he saw Fu Shirui's figure closing in. Zhao Wenjiang instinctively took a step back, and this movement made Fu Shirui halt. The atmosphere instantly grew tense and still. Just then, a gust of wind swept through, shattering the rigid mood. Fu Shirui's words drifted over on the wind. Are you afraid of me? Zhao Wenjiang glanced at her. No. Fu Shirui frowned upon hearing this, clearly not buying his answer. After a moment of thought, she finally spoke. You still blame me, don't you? About the child. Mention of the child sent a sharp pang through Zhao Wenjiang's heart. He couldn't help but raise his voice, cutting her off. Don't talk to me about the child. Fu Shirui fell silent. Zhao Wenjiang's emotions churned. After a long moment, he struggled to control himself, his voice low and strained. Thank you for today, really, goodbye. With that, Zhao Wenjiang took Feng Rui's hand and led her into the inn. Fu Shirui stood there, silently watching the direction in which Zhao Wenjiang had disappeared. A complex mix of emotions flickered in her eyes, finally settling into a bitter smile. I just wanted to apologize, that's all. Yet Zhao Wenjiang seemed unwilling to listen. His evasive, almost fearful attitude pierced her heart like a thorn. After a long moment, a flicker passed through her gaze. From this day forward, she would never fail him again. Inside the hotel room, Zhao Wenjiang sat on the bed, his face expressionless as he stared at Feng Ruwei. Feng Ruwei guiltily lowered his head, thinking to himself, why does my brother look so much like that diplomat when he puts on a cold face? Feng Ruwei, didn't I tell you not to go too far? You nearly scared me to death. Zhao Wenjiang asked coldly. Feng Ruwei looked at the ground and admitted his fault honestly. I'm sorry, brother, I was wrong. this really was his own fault. He had run too far away. Seeing his expression, Zhao Wenjiang's icy demeanor melted away, replaced by a look of lingering fear. You must stay right by my side from now on, understand? This place allows guns. It's practically a paradise for criminals. If he hadn't been rescued in time, Zhao Wenjiang couldn't bear to imagine the unspeakable torture that would have followed. Feng Rui looked up, saw the softening expression on Zhao Wenjiang's face, and threw himself at him with a laugh. I'm fine. Bro. Zhao Wenjiang caught him and shook his head with a sigh of resignation. A fool who never learns his lesson. Chapter 21. For the next 2 days, Zhao Wenjiang didn't dare take Feng Rui out wandering around. The two of them stayed in their room and watched TV. While he was at it, Zhao Wenjiang wrote a letter and sent it to the embassy. It wasn't until the 3rd day that Zhang Ye came knocking. Boss, it's time for us to head out. Zhao Wenjiang brought Feng Rui along with him. This time, things went surprisingly smoothly. Both parties quickly reached an agreement and signed the contract. Helen signed her name, then winked at Zhao Wenjiang and extended her hand. Hey, darling, you'll be my point of contact from now on. Okay, Zhao Wenjiang smiled, reaching out to shake her hand. Of course. After wrapping up the remaining details, Zhao Wenjiang booked a flight for that same day to return home. Meanwhile, at the embassy, the moment Fu Shirui stepped through the main entrance, she sensed something different in everyone's gaze, a hint of admiration. This was rather unusual. Fu Shirui furrowed her brow but had no intention of asking questions. Just as she was about to head into her office, someone called out, Counselor Fu, the ambassador would like to see you. Alright. After her reply, she turned and headed for the director's office. Only after she had entered and taken a seat did the director, with a hearty chuckle, pull a letter from his drawer. Comrade Fu. Well done, a member of the public has sent you a letter of thanks. Fu Shirui was stunned for a moment. She reached out and took the letter, her eyes falling upon the familiar handwriting. The penmanship was bold and powerful. This was Zhao Wenjiang's writing. He actually sent a letter. Fu Shirui's furrowed brow gradually relaxed. She looked up and replied, it was the least I could do. The elderly director nodded. This comrade also mentioned that after returning home, he would write to the capital. It seems your position is ripe for a change. The implication was crystal clear. The director had long hoped that Fu Shirui would succeed him as the embassy's head, and for the past 3 years, he had poured his heart and soul into mentoring her for that very purpose. But this time, she was likely to disappoint him. Fu Shirui pursed her lips, looked up, and said, Director, I'd like to request to return to my home country. Attention passengers for Luzhou. The aircraft will be landing shortly. Zhao Wenjiang hurried towards the exit, luggage in one hand and holding Feng Rui's hand with the other, with Zhang Ye following breathlessly behind them. Boss, you've got way too much stamina. Zhao Wenjiang turned and gave her a look of utter disdain. He then said to Feng Rui, when you look for a woman in the future, don't get one like this. She's way too weak. Feng Rui covered his mouth and laughed. Zhang Ye was hopping mad. I'm not weak. I'm not weak at all. Ouch. Who just bumped into me? Zhang Ye looked up, and the angry expression froze on her face. Towering over her petite, roughly 5-foot frame was a woman nearly 5'5", looking down at her with impatience. What did you say? Her angry face instantly transformed into a smile. It's nothing, nothing at all. Sorry for bumping into you. Zhao Wenjiang shook his head and looked toward the woman. That bold, familiar face came into view. Her gaze shifted over as well. Their eyes met, and a look of astonishment flashed in both their eyes. One of them couldn't believe the coincidence. How could there be two people in this world who look so incredibly alike? But after just one glance, Shintong averted her eyes. Without a moment's hesitation, she turned and walked away. Zhao Wenjiang watched her retreating figure, his eyes filled with shock and doubt. Shouldn't Shintong be in special forces training by now? What's she doing in Luzhou? Unable to make sense of it, Zhao Wenjiang simply stopped trying. He pushed the thought aside, went home, and crashed to beat the jet lag. The next day, as soon as Zhao Wenjiang returned to the publishing house, he was greeted with a warm welcome. Way to go, chief editor, you nailed it. After the pleasantries, Zhao Wenjiang brought out boxes of dried cranberries and said to his subordinates, these are a local specialty. Please, everyone, have a taste. Wow. The editor-in-chief is the best, Zhao Wenjiang chuckled, pulling over the person who was only focused on eating. Anything new lately? Subordinate Zhang Duo's face scrunched up from the sour fruit. I heard the big boss is planning to acquire a publishing house in the capital. Not sure if it's true, boss. This dried fruit is so sour. Chapter 22. Zhao Wenjiang patted him on the back. take your time, he said. He returned to his office, tidied up the contract, and then took it to the big boss's office. Knock, knock, knock. Zhao Wenjiang raised his hand and rapped on the door 3 times. Come in, a familiar woman's voice came from within. Zhao Wenjiang pushed the door open and entered. The woman seated in the office was Kong Ziyu, his benefactor since arriving in Lu City, dressed in a pure white business suit, with gold-rimmed glasses perched on her elegant nose. She carried an air of cool, refined grace. She was holding the receiver with a faint smile, saying, "Understood, very well. I'll send someone over to coordinate." Seeing Zhao Wenjiang enter, she gave a slight wave of her hand, gesturing for him to take a seat. Once he was seated, she concluded her call. "All right, that settles it, goodbye." Seizing the moment, Zhao Wenjiang spoke up, "Boss, here is the contract for this deal." Kong Ziyu listened quietly, glanced at the contract again, and praised, "Well done, you've secured another bestseller for the company. Your quarterly bonus is all but guaranteed." When the boss is generous with compensation, the employees are naturally happy. After this quarter's pay is deposited, he'll have enough to buy his own place. Zhao Wenjiang smiled and said, "Just doing my job." The joy was short-lived, as Kong Ziyu promptly dropped a troublesome work assignment on him. "I'm considering acquiring a publishing house in Jing City, and I intend to put you in charge of the takeover." Zhao Wenjiang's smile froze on his face. Jing City was a hotbed of trouble. If he went there, it was only a matter of time before he was exposed. He'd even run into acquaintances in the US and Lu City. How much more likely was that in Jing City? He quickly declined, "Boss, I'm quite content here." Kong Ziyu wore a faint smile and held up 5 fingers. "If you take over the role, you'll get 5% of the company's shares." The words caught in his throat. The temptation was undeniably huge. 5% of the shares was enough to catapult him from modest comfort to genuine wealth. Zhao Wenjiang thought for a moment, then agreed decisively, "All right, get your things in order. In a month, you and I will set off together to sign the contract." "All right." 1 month later, the capital city, standing on the street, Zhao Wenjiang gazed at the familiar sights around him, and a dazed look came over his face. Kong Ziyu's voice came from beside him, "What are you standing there for? Getting cold feet now that you're home?" Zhao Wenjiang snapped back to attention and replied with an evasive smile, "No, it's just been too long since I've been back." She smiled and didn't press the matter further. She simply said to the person who had come to pick her up, "Let's go." To Huron Lane, the two of them arrived at a house with a courtyard. It looks well maintained, clean and tidy from the outside. Zhao Wenjiang couldn't help but ask, "What is this place?" Kong Ziyu took out a set of keys and unlocked the door. "This is a courtyard house I bought in the capital. You can live here once you take up your post. It's only a 10-minute walk from your workplace." Zhao Wenjiang was taken aback, his light brown eyes fixed on her retreating figure as he asked, a trace of bewilderment in his voice, "This is for me." Kong Ziyu pushed the door open, his posture slightly bowed as he courteously gestured with one hand for the other to enter. "Of course, after all, you are my business partner," she replied with polite restraint. Zhao Wenjiang glanced at her, then walked in, carrying his luggage. Once inside, I discovered a whole new world. There was even a pond built with artificial rockery, with koi fish gliding through the water and a few turtles sunbathing on a stack of rocks in the center. It was the spitting image of his dream house. Moreover, he had actually discussed this exact layout with his boss. Zhao Wenjiang turned back and glanced at Kong Ziyu once more. She was scrutinizing the courtyard inch by inch with a critical eye. It was as if she were looking for faults, ready to dock the workers' pay the moment she found something unsatisfactory. Their eyes met, and Kong Ziyu offered him a polite smile. Zhao Wenjiang smiled back, then averted his gaze, a thought involuntarily surfacing in his mind. The boss wouldn't like him, would she? Chapter 23. The demanding boss inspected the room from top to bottom. Satisfied that everything was in order, she gave a nod of approval and turned to Zhao Wenjiang. "Go freshen up," she said. "We have a contract to discuss." Knowing Kong Ziyu's finicky, almost obsessive-compulsive temperament, Zhao Wenjiang gave a resigned nod and went into the inner room to freshen up. When he finished and came out, he saw that Kong Ziyu had also changed her clothes. Zhao Wenjiang was surprised. "Boss, when did you change?" With an air of dignified pride, she lifted her chin slightly. "The courtyard across from yours belongs to my grandfather. If you need anything, just ask them." No wonder she didn't bring any luggage. Her place is right here. The realization dawned on Zhao Wenjiang, and he said nothing more. The two of them walked out side by side, and as they looked up, they saw the door of the house to the left across the hall swing open. Shintong reappeared before Zhao Wenjiang's eyes, her expression bold and her posture casual, with her hands tucked into her pockets. What a coincidence. Zhao Wenjiang glanced over and quickly looked away, thinking to himself, why do I keep running into her? Meanwhile, Shintong also cast a brief glance in Zhao Wenjiang's direction. She then averted her gaze, her expression neutral. For some reason, this encounter had left Zhao Wenjiang's heart slightly unsettled. He asked Kong Ziyu in a low voice, do you know her? Is she a relative of yours too? Kong Ziyu glanced at Zhao Wenjiang, then at Shintong, and smiled with an ambiguous expression. What's this? Taken a liking to her. That teasing tone made it perfectly clear she harbored no romantic feelings for him. Zhao Wenjiang gritted his teeth, forcing the words out through them. Just asking. Kong Ziyu smiled again. No, she's not a relative, she's the granddaughter from next door. She's always running over here. Having gotten his answer, Zhao Wenjiang didn't ask anything more. He had heard about Shintong's family before. Her mother had passed away a long time ago. After her father remarried, Shintong's rebellious phase began. The sound of her father's lectures filled the house every day. Growing up in such an environment, it was only natural she preferred spending time at her maternal grandfather's. Perhaps it was because she had helped her. Zhao Wenjiang felt an inexplicable pull towards Shintong, his mind preoccupied with the thought of repaying a perceived debt of gratitude. Meanwhile, Shintong watched Zhao Wenjiang's receding figure, lost in thought. This was the second time she had run into him, a man who looked exactly like Zhao Wenjiang. Zhao Wenjiang and Shintong arrived at the Su family restaurant. After the reform and opening up, a great number of private businesses and companies sprang up all over the country, giving a significant boost to the national economy. It was plain to see that the standard of living for the people had improved considerably. The point of contact was a short, stout middle-aged man who greeted them warmly. Comrade, hello, thank you for making the long journey. After exchanging pleasantries, they went inside to begin the negotiations. The talk started off quite well, but they hit a snag when it came to the price. He wanted an extra percentage point. Zhao Wenjiang drew a sharp breath. That's a bold ask. A single percentage point equates to tens of thousands. The boss would never agree to that. Sure enough, the smile vanished from Kong Ziyu's face in an instant. Mr. Li, that's not in line with market rates. She's a businesswoman, after all. She's not about to make a deal at a loss. Boss Li rubbed his hands awkwardly. Boss Kong, I'm really strapped for cash, otherwise, I'd never consider selling this publishing house. With neither side willing to budge, the negotiations hit a standstill. Seeing the deadlock, Zhao Wenjiang stepped in to smooth things over. Even if the deal falls through, our goodwill remains. Boss Li, this truly is our best and final offer. Perhaps you should take some time to reconsider. And so, the meal came to an inconclusive end, the moment he stepped outside. Kong Ziyu's polite smile vanished instantly. That guy really pulled a fast one on me at the last minute. Kong Ziyu let out a cold snort after saying that. Seeing how furious she was, Zhao Wenjiang had no choice but to console her. It's fine, right now, it's just a game of who can outlast the other. Hearing this, Kong Ziyu's expression finally softened. The two of them left the restaurant entrance, and not far away, Zhao Yutao stared in shock at Zhao Wenjiang's retreating figure. He muttered under his breath, Zhao Wenjiang. Then, his gaze shifted to the short, portly Boss Li, his eyes flickering with thought. He walked over and greeted him. Mr. Li, long time no see. Chapter 24, the acquisition talks fell through. So Zhao Wenjiang and Kong Ziyu returned to the courtyard. At the doorway, she politely stopped and didn't enter, instead extending an invitation. Would you like to come over to my place for dinner tonight? Zhao Wenjiang nodded. All right. With that, the two of them headed home separately. Dusk fell. Carrying his things, Zhao Wenjiang entered the Kong family's gate and was warmly welcomed. We had barely sat down before the Kong family started asking questions. Young man, where are you from? I'm from the capital. Very good, very good. And what do you do for a living? I'm a translator. Oh, wonderful. That's a fine profession. And what is your relationship to our Kong Ziyu? At these words, Zhao Wenjiang was stumped. Kong Ziyu, who had been watching from the sidelines, could no longer stay out of it and hurriedly explained, Grandma, Grandpa, he's my subordinate, he's here on company business. Hearing this, the elderly couple's expressions visibly fell. Zhao Wenjiang gave an awkward smile. The elderly couple immediately perked up and asked, Young man, are you seeing anyone? Let this old lady set you up. The girl next door is just lovely, tall, pretty, and she's serving in the military right now. That description must be Shintong. Overwhelmed by their enthusiasm, Zhao Wenjiang waved his hand helplessly. No, thank you, Granny. I'm not really thinking about marriage at the moment, having enjoyed the show. Kong Ziyu cleared his throat and said, Grandma. Isn't it about time for dinner? Oh dear, I got so caught up in chatting I forgot myself. With Granny Kong heading to the kitchen, the questioning finally came to a proper end. What Zhao Wenjiang didn't know was that after the meal, Granny Kong went straight next door. Shintong was sitting in the courtyard chatting with her grandparents. Seeing Granny Kong come in, she looked up and greeted her. Granny Kong, have you eaten yet? Granny Kong nodded with a smile. Yes, I have. After speaking, her gaze swept over Shintong, taking in her pretty face and good figure, then she gave a satisfied nod. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Granny Kong got straight to the point. My granddaughter has a subordinate who's quite the handsome young man. This old lady thinks he'd be a perfect match for Shintong. Shintong, would you like to meet him? This last sentence was directed squarely at Shintong. Shintong was taken aback for a moment. Then a playful smirk spread across her face. Granny Kong, isn't your own granddaughter still single? Maybe those two already like each other and just haven't said anything yet. No one knows her own granddaughter better than Granny Kong. Granny Kong sighed. If only that were true. They've been boss and subordinate for 3 years now. If there was ever going to be something between them, it would have happened by now. 3 years. Shintong narrowed her eyes. This year also marked the 3rd anniversary of Zhao Wenjiang's death. A slight smile touched her lips as she agreed. All right, Granny, if he has no objections, I'll go meet him. If it works out, I'll give you a nice, fat red envelope. Granny. This promise had Granny Kong beaming with delight. Although Shintong had a poor reputation within the government compound, here at the entrance of the Hudong Alley, everyone praised her as a filial and dutiful child. He brings over a good amount of meat every few days. Shintong handles all the heavy chores at home, and now that he's joined the army, his reputation has only gotten better. The more she looks at him, the more she likes him. Granny Kong genuinely thinks this boy is wonderful. The next day, unable to resist Granny Kong's warm invitation, Zhao Wenjiang once again stepped through the Kong family's gate. As soon as he entered, he saw Shintong sitting at a stone table, playing chess with Grandpa Kong. The evening glow fell upon her thick lashes, softening her usually cool expression. She glanced sideways, looking at him through the fringe of her eyelashes. Zhao Wenjiang held his breath without thinking. He was afraid Shintong would bring up the past, but she only glanced over casually, as if looking at flowers or grass, her eyes devoid of any particular emotion. Fang Jinyan, get in here and help pick these vegetables. Chapter 25, Zhao Wenjiang snapped back to attention, following the sound. He saw Kong Ziyu drawing water from the well in the courtyard, her other hand pointing toward the opposite side of the yard. Seeing her like that, Zhao Wenjiang couldn't help but smile. It just goes to show, no matter how big a boss you are, you still have to do chores for your grandparents at home. Following Kong Ziyu's pointing finger, Zhao Wenjiang walked over to a rack, where he saw a few scattered loofah gourds hanging. He asked, how many do you need? Granny Kong came out from the stove, holding a pot. 3 will do, she said. After saying that, she pursed her lips towards Shintong. Shintong, go and give him a hand. A faint smile played at the corner of Shintong's lips as he set down his chess piece obediently and strode over. After picking one decent-looking loofah, Zhao Wenjiang had his eye on another. It was just a bit too far, and his current stance made it awkward to reach. The next instant, an imposing shadow fell over him. A pale, powerful arm appeared before Zhao Wenjiang's eyes, effortlessly snapping off the loofah he had been eyeing. Zhao Wenjiang was momentarily stunned. He turned around to find Shintong standing right behind him, holding out a loofah. Here, she said, offering it to him. Zhao Wenjiang took it instinctively. Before he could even say thank you, he saw her pick 2 more and hold them in her hand. Then, Shintong drawled in a casual, offhand manner. Your name is Fang Jinyan. I'm not sure what she meant by that. Zhao Wenjiang pursed his lips slightly and greeted her as if she were a stranger. Yes, and you are. Shintong's gaze lingered on him thoughtfully before she broke into a smile. My name is Shintong. I'm 22, in good health, and I don't have any bad habits. Zhao Wenjiang stared at her, dumbfounded. My mind went blank for a moment, but for some reason, my heart gave a little flutter in my chest, without quite knowing why. He followed suit and introduced himself. I'm 23, a year older than you. Shintong gave a soft, ambiguous hum. Well then, consider us acquainted, make yourself at home. With that, She was the first to step out from behind the shelves. After walking a few steps and seeing no one following, she tilted her chin. Come on. Only then did Zhao Wenjiang snap out of it. Picking up the two loofahs and hurrying after her, the scene from moments ago kept replaying in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that Shintong had recognized him, yet, she hadn't mentioned a word of it. An inexplicable warmth began to spread through Zhao Wenjiang's heart, so the usually overbearing Shintong had this side to her, too. Around the round table, everyone tacitly left the seat next to Shintong vacant. With a resigned smile, Zhao Wenjiang took his seat. The food prepared by Grandma Kong was delicious. Zhao Wenjiang was enjoying it so much that he completely forgot about Shintong sitting beside him. Suddenly, a tissue appeared before his eyes. Zhao Wenjiang looked up to find Shintong staring directly at his face. Their eyes met, but she didn't look away. Instead, she teased him, "You've got food all over your face." Zhao Wenjiang's eyes flickered. He took the tissue and wiped his cheek, seeing her still smiling at him. He raised his hand and wiped the other side of his face. Shintong, as if she couldn't stand to watch any longer, gently dabbed the tissue against Zhao Wenjiang's face. The motion was restrained and gentle. There, as her words faded, Zhao Wenjiang seemed to snap back to reality. He blinked, his expression blank, and went back to eating, but inside, he was anything but calm. In that fleeting moment, it was as if a heavy leaf had dropped onto a lake, sending rippling circles across the surface of his heart, which had been as still as a mirror. It was a feeling he was experiencing for the first time in 2 lifetimes. After the meal, Zhao Wenjiang practically fled back to his courtyard. Late at night, lying in bed and staring at the ceiling beams, he sighed inwardly. Does Shintong have any idea what she's doing? Chapter 26. A few days later, Zhao Wenjiang was in the courtyard translating documents when he heard a knock at the door. Upon opening the door, he was met with Kong Ziyu's unnervingly calm face. Zhao Wenjiang silently stepped aside to let him in. It was clear the boss was furious. Kong Ziyu sat on the stone table in the courtyard, a cold smile playing on his lips as he stared directly at Zhao Wenjiang. Bossly says the deal's off, not selling anymore. Zhao Wenjiang frowned and asked in confusion, what's going on? A sudden change of heart. Someone must be pulling strings behind the scenes. Kong Ziyu tapped his slender fingers lightly, pondering for a moment before saying, I tried to sound her out. She only mentioned that there's another party interested in the acquisition. Who on earth is behind this? She thought long and hard, but couldn't figure out who her enemy might be. Zhao Wenjiang's eyes flickered beside him. It seemed he was the only one in the capital with enemies. He couldn't help but frown. Could it really be such a coincidence? Then, Zhao Wenjiang spoke slowly. It might be because of me. Kong Ziyu immediately stopped his tapping and fixed a cold, piercing stare on Zhao Wenjiang. Because of you? That look seemed like it could kill. Zhao Wenjiang gave an awkward laugh. Try to get some information out of him. See if a man named Zhao Yutao is behind this. The moment the words left his mouth, he was met with Kong Ziyu's death glare. She shot a glance at Zhao Wenjiang, then walked out the door. Probably went to make a phone call. After a moment, Kong Ziyu entered with a cold expression. It's him, all right. Then, she gave a cold smile. I think I'll go and have a word with him. With that, Kong Ziyu stormed out of the room. Zhao Wenjiang didn't even have time to stop her. He chased her out the door, but her figure vanished in the blink of an eye. Just as he was about to follow, he heard Shintong's voice from behind him. Is that girl having another one of her episodes? Rushing off like she's heading to a fight. Zhao Wenjiang turned around. Shintong sauntered over with a lazy, casual gait, meeting his gaze. She raised an eyebrow nonchalantly. Need a hand? Zhao Wenjiang shook his head. No need, the boss can handle it. Knowing Kong Ziyu's temperament well, he was fully aware of her formidable combat skills, sharp-tongued and vindictive. It was Zhao Yutao who was in for a world of hurt. Fu Shirui's dark pupils fixed on him for a few seconds before she suddenly let out a soft, derisive snort. You seem to know her quite well. As she spoke, she averted her gaze, the corners of her mouth drooping as if she were in a foul mood. Strangely, Zhao Wenjiang felt the atmosphere was a bit off. He pursed his lips and instinctively explained, after all, she is my boss. The moment the words left his mouth, Zhao Wenjiang regretted it. It sounded like he was trying to placate a jealous partner. It was plain to see that Shintong's mood had brightened. The corners of her lips lifted slightly, and a glimmer of light sparkled in her eyes. For a fleeting moment, Zhao Wenjiang almost thought he saw a tail swaying leisurely behind her. Shintong looked directly at him and asked, my grandmother's big birthday is coming up. What do you think would be a good longevity gift? Zhao Wenjiang furrowed his brow. That's quite a sudden change of topic, isn't it? But he answered anyway, for a milestone birthday, it's best to give gifts like gold, silver, or jade jewelry. She gave a soft hum. Then her red lips parted slightly, as if she felt a hint of nervousness about what she was going to say next. This made Zhao Wenjiang's heart tighten as well. In that eerie atmosphere, Shintong's low voice drifted over. You have good taste. She paused here, her gaze deepening as she looked at Zhao Wenjiang. Even a fool would have understood by now. Zhao Wenjiang stood rooted to the spot, his mind going blank for a moment. The next moment, her lovely lips parted as she asked. Do you have a moment? Chapter 27. Zhao Wenjiang didn't think much of it. His gaze drifted idly around before settling on a pendant for a few seconds, then moving on. Shintong happened to catch this, and a flicker passed through her eyes. The two of them left the street and headed back toward Hurong Lane. It wasn't far. I walked here, so I'll walk back. Hurong Alley passed by the gate of the government compound. Seeing this familiar street, Zhao Wenjiang instinctively quickened his pace. It was right here that he had been abducted, a memory that still haunted him. What's more, he had no desire to run into certain people, but sometimes, life has a funny way of arranging things. A sedan glided to a stop right beside Zhao Wenjiang. Zhao Wenjiang halted in his tracks, his heart leaping into his throat. The car window rolled down, revealing the cool, beautiful face of Fu Shiruwei. Zhao Wenjiang could almost hear his luck sighing. Fu Shiruwei's gaze fixed on Zhao Wenjiang for a few seconds, then shifted to Shintong, her eyes holding a trace of scrutiny. What are you two doing together? The words of doubt stung Zhao Wenjiang. He shot a cold glance at Fu Shiruwei, offering no reply. Instead, it was Shintong who curled her lips, her tone laced with sarcasm. And why shouldn't we be together? At this, Fu Shiruwei turned her gaze to Shintong. Their eyes met like live wires crossing, the air crackling with palpable tension. In the end, it was Zhao Wenjiang who broke the stalemate. Shinjin Jewelry. The saleswoman enthusiastically promoted the necklace in her hand. This piece is perfect for gifting to the elderly, symbolizing health and longevity. As she spoke, she handed it to Zhao Wenjiang, who stood before her. Zhao Wenjiang accepted it with a look of utter bewilderment, completely at a loss as to what was happening. Ever since Shintong asked that question, I somehow found myself agreeing against my better judgment. What followed was a scene of fervent enthusiasm right before my eyes. Over there, the female staff member continued warmly, you two are such a filial couple. These days, it's rare to find children willing to spend so much on their elders. Zhao Wenjiang tried to object, we're not. Before he could finish speaking, Fu Shiruwei's hand appeared in front of him, taking the gold necklace. This one's nice, wrap it up. Seeing how readily Fu Shiruwei agreed, Zhao Wenjiang was taken aback for a moment. A deal without haggling just isn't complete. He tugged gently on her sleeve, about to say something, and Fu Shiruwei instinctively turned towards him, to keep their conversation private. Zhao Wenjiang leaned close to her ear and whispered, what are you doing? You're not even trying to haggle. But for some reason, Shintong didn't respond. Instead, she froze in place. Seeing the saleswoman approach to wrap the item, Zhao Wenjiang stopped her. We just discussed it, and the price is too high. We'll buy it if you can lower it a bit. As the two of them bargained, Shintong quietly straightened up. Her face showed no emotion, but the faint blush at the tips of her ears betrayed her inner turmoil. Her gaze settled on Zhao Wenjiang, her eyes growing somber, once a stagnant pool of despair. He now stood before her, reborn like a phoenix rising from the ashes. If only her mother had been able to break free back then, she might have looked just like this. Finally finishing his haggling, Zhao Wenjiang leaned in and whispered to Fu Shiruwei beside him, pay up. When Fu Shiruwei didn't respond, he looked up and met her inscrutable expression. Her eyes held an unreadable emotion, something between nostalgia and regret. Their gazes locked, and Shintong finally snapped out of it, paying with a perfectly composed face, as if nothing had happened at all. Tong, let's go. Shintong smiled, averted her gaze, and said languidly, all right. That arrogant face made Fu Shiruwei particularly furious. Watching the two figures walk away, Fu Shiruwei frowned. Something was off about the atmosphere between them. Chapter 28. Meanwhile, at the government compound, it was lunchtime. Zhao Yutao was eating in the cafeteria when, suddenly, someone sat down opposite him without so much as a by your leave. He frowned, looking up with annoyance. Comrade, there are plenty of other seats available. But when he got a clear look at the person before him, Zhao Yutao's heart skipped a beat. The man had a cool, detached handsomeness, with gold-rimmed glasses perched on the bridge of his nose, and carried himself with an air of elegant refinement. He recognized the person. It was the woman standing next to Zhao Wenjiang. The very owner of Lusher Translation Publishing House that Bosley had mentioned, Kong Ziyu. Kong Ziyu adjusted her glasses, the lenses flashing with a glint of light that obscured her eyes from Zhao Yutao's view. She spoke slowly, her voice laced with a chill. Comrade Zhao, I've heard so much about you. At that moment, a cold shiver ran down Zhao Wenjiang's spine, as if he were being watched by a venomous snake. He straightened his back, feigning composure as he replied, Comrade. This is the canteen for the government compound. How did you get in here? A polite smile touched Kong Ziyu's lips. Comrade Zhao, I hear you're looking to acquire the company. Zhao Yutao's lips twitched, and he was about to speak when Kong Ziyu cut him off. The state has clear regulations, Kong said. Public officials are not allowed to operate companies privately, otherwise. That statement hit Zhao Yutao right where it hurt. He clenched his hand slightly, a flicker of nervousness crossing his face before he quickly composed himself. I was just asking for a friend, he said. Does the regulation really forbid it? Kong Ziyu's smile widened. Of course you can ask. Which friend? I'd actually like to have a chat with him. Zhao Yutao's lips pressed into a thin, hard line. That's none of your business, he replied stiffly. Bosley is in a bit of a financial bind lately. If this deal falls through because of you, Kong Ziyu paused, a cryptic smile playing on her lips. Do you have any idea what he's capable of? Zhao Yutao understood her implication perfectly. Bosley was likely pressuring him to make a high-priced acquisition, but he had neither the manpower nor the capital to take it on. If things turned into a mutually destructive fight, he'd be the one left holding the bag. Zhao Yutao's face darkened. He shot to his feet, glared down at Kong Ziyu, and spat out, "You're insane." With that, he turned on his heel and strode away. His retreating figure was practically a full-blown rout. Kong Ziyu, still seated, gave a faint smile. His eyes were inscrutable as he murmured, "That's quite a look, like a kitten that's all bark and no bite, terrified to its core yet still trying to swipe at you with its claws." A few more days passed. Bosley finally gave in. Even through the phone, Zhao Wenjiang could hear the fawning tone on the other end. With a faint smile on his face, Kong Ziyu delivered a line that was almost infuriating. Bosley, given your lack of integrity, I'm lowering the price by another percentage point from the original offer. Bosley hemmed and hawed for a long time. Kong Ziyu, losing his patience, was about to hang up. A sigh came from the other end of the line. Alright, fine. Even after hanging up the landline, Kong Ziyu was still smiling. Zhao Wenjiang gave a shudder. He really was a ruthless capitalist who'd skin you for a penny. Then, thinking of Zhao Yutao, he couldn't help but chuckle. It looked like someone was in for a world of trouble. Having enjoyed the show, Zhao Wenjiang set about preparing for the acquisition. In less than 3 days, everything was taken care of. Kong Ziyu gave a satisfied nod, and only then did he feel at ease returning to Luzhou, Kyoto Publishing House. Ever since the news of a change in leadership broke, a tense atmosphere has settled over the company. Rumor has it that the new president is visiting the office today. People couldn't help but start whispering among themselves. I heard the new president is a complete novice with no real experience. A rookie. Is this going to work? Don't run the publishing house into the ground. I hear he's pretty tight with the boss. You don't think it's... You know, the speaker gave a knowing, ambiguous chuckle. The others joined in with knowing smirks. The only employee in the publishing house who hadn't joined the discussion frowned. He couldn't help but say, "Could you all focus on your work instead of gossiping like a bunch of old hens?" Chapter 29. The man's expression darkened, and he shot a fierce glare at the employee. "You Ming, are you out of your mind?" Yu Ming pressed his lips together and said nothing more. Seeing the other person back down, the man puffed up with pride again. "Humph, so you're scared of me after all." Zhao Wenjiang stood at the doorway and watched the whole scene unfold. In the past, he probably would have been affected by the gossip and rumors, but after 3 years under Kong Ziyu's influence, such things were merely an itch to him, which is why he always considered Kong Ziyu his benefactor. A moment later, after finishing his observation, Zhao Wenjiang entered the editor-in-chief's office, pretending he had just arrived. The former editor-in-chief had already left. After tidying up a bit, he called in the former managing editor for a brief chat. The meeting was then called to order. Once everyone had arrived, Zhao Wenjiang pointed at several people and said, "You're all fired." They were the very ones who had just been gossiping. Their faces went pale. After exchanging a few glances, they realized their private conversation had been overheard. One person tried to stay behind, pleading desperately, "President, please don't fire me. I can't lose this job." Zhao Wenjiang's expression was icy. "I don't care what you say behind my back, but make sure I never hear it. I hold a grudge. The rest of you, get out, now." With that, Zhao Wenjiang watched them pack their things, his gaze unwavering, under the watchful eyes of the crowd. A few individuals slunk away in disgrace. Zhao Wenjiang could accept simple dislike or constructive suggestions, but he would not tolerate rumor-mongers. This kind of toxic culture must not be allowed to take root in the company. Zhao Wenjiang then made his stance clear. Anyone caught spreading baseless rumors again will also be asked to leave. Is that understood? Understood. Zhao Wenjiang gave a nod, and the meeting was adjourned. And so, Zhao Wenjiang's day came to an end in a fog of mental exhaustion, fresh in the role. There was just so much to learn about the business. The clock struck 6. Zhao Wenjiang rubbed his temples and began packing up to leave for the day. As soon as he opened the door, he saw all the employees still at their desks, motionless, with their typewriters clacking away. They were clearly still immersed in the world of translation. Their sheer dedication made Zhao Wenjiang feel almost guilty about leaving. He cleared his throat and raised his voice. Everyone, you can head off now. Go home and get some rest. After saying that, Zhao Wenjiang was the first to leave. He knew that if he didn't go, the others probably wouldn't dare to either. The moment he stepped outside, Zhao Wenjiang spotted Fu Shirui immediately. With her graceful figure and cool, detached demeanor, she stood out distinctly in the crowd. Their eyes met, the atmosphere grew subtly tense. Zhao Wenjiang couldn't quite put his finger on it, but he felt something had shifted. Fu Shirui made her way through the crowd and stopped before Zhao Wenjiang. Her face, usually so impassive, was now graced with a faint smile. Care to join me for dinner? Zhao Wenjiang stared at her for a few seconds, then gave an almost imperceptible nod. Inside the restaurant, the two sat facing each other, looking at one another in silence. After a long while, Fu Shirui was the first to speak. So, how have you been lately? The words were out before he realized they seemed to have nothing left to talk about. She pursed her lips, her expression dimming slightly. I'm doing fine. Didn't you look into my file? Zhao Wenjiang retorted. Fu Shirui was silent for a moment, her tone gentle. That's just a file. After all, are you really determined to be Fang Jinyan for the rest of your life? Zhao Wenjiang felt a little dazed. Zhao Wenjiang and Fang Jinyan. Was that name so important? What mattered was that the name Fang Jinyan would no longer be bound by so-called blood ties. To him, the Zhao family was nothing but a cage. As long as the bloodline continued, they would always feel entitled to make demands of him. At this thought, Zhao Wenjiang's face darkened. Gritting his teeth, he forced the words out. This is the only way I can break free from the Zhao family. From you. Chapter 30. The moment those words were spoken, Fu Shirui was stunned. A flicker of sorrow passed through her eyes, but it vanished almost instantly. It was so brief that Zhao Wenjiang thought he must have imagined it. Yet, the deep furrow in her brow made it clear just how deeply the words had struck her. After a long pause, her gentle voice emerged. I'm sorry, Before she could finish, the server brought the dishes, forcing Fu Shirui to stop mid-sentence. Here are your orders. Kung Pao chicken, braised shark fin and brown sauce. All dishes are served. Please enjoy your meal. The lavish spread consisted entirely of her favorite dishes. Zhao Wenjiang was taken aback, the question slipping out before he could stop himself. How did you know my favorite dishes? You used to make them all the time. Hearing that reply, Zhao Wenjiang couldn't quite describe the feeling that washed over him. It was just a heavy, suffocating weight settling in his chest. A sense of his own absurdity washed over him. I must be crazy to have hoped for anything different. Zhao Wenjiang gave a faint smile and said calmly, let's eat. With that, he paid Fu Shirui no further mind and ate his meal in silence. Fu Shirui gave him a heavy look, a vague sense of unease settling in her heart, as if a hard-won opportunity had just slipped away. It was only upon reflection that she realized something was off. That was a slip of the tongue she shouldn't have made, for a diplomat known for her silver tongue. She always seemed to say the wrong thing around Zhao Wenjiang. Zhao Wenjiang's expression remained impassive. Someone who doesn't value you would never care about your feelings. Was Fu Shirui really that bad with words? She would, but she had long grown accustomed to treating herself this way, accustomed to neglect, accustomed to indifference, accustomed to treating him as an enemy. This habit of hers is chilling. This was also the very reason Zhao Wenjiang could never accept her. The atmosphere at the table grew tense and still. It wasn't until someone sat down at the next table that Zhao Wenjiang glanced over instinctively, drawn by a familiar silhouette. In the next instant, his gaze met Shintong's dark eyes, which held an intensity that seemed to pierce straight through to Zhao Wenjiang's core. His heart skipped a beat. Zhao Wenjiang stiffly swallowed the food in his mouth, for no reason at all, a pang of guilt, like that of an adulterer caught in the act. surged in his heart. The feeling was inexplicably intense. Zhao Wenjiang took a deep breath, forcefully suppressing the emotion, and couldn't help but laugh at himself inwardly. When did I become so full of myself? Seeing Shentong still staring intently at him, Zhao Wenjiang put his smile back on and said to her, "What a coincidence." But Shentong didn't play along. She raised an eyebrow and said nonchalantly, "Not a coincidence. I came in here specifically because I saw you, Zhao Wenjiang." He had no idea how to respond to that. He fell silent for a moment. Before he could speak, he heard Shentong say to Fu Shirui with a laugh, "Wasn't this diplomat of yours stationed in the States? What brings you back home all of a sudden?" Beside them, Fu Shirui lifted her gaze, fixing it directly on Shentong, their eyes locked, the air between them crackling with tension. Fu Shirui's expression remained neutral as she replied flatly, "I've decided to come back and pursue my career here, ha." Shentong scoffed, "Is it because of Feng Jinyan?" Zhao Wenjiang, who had been quietly keeping a low profile, was startled. Shentong's bluntness was almost too much for him to handle, and he thought to himself, how is this possible? But in their past life, Fu Shirui had stayed in America for 5 years before returning. He instinctively looked toward Fu Shirui, only to find her gaze already fixed on him. Her eyes seemed to hold a hint of guilt as her lips parted to utter a single word, "Yes." Fu Shirui was answering Shentong's question, yet her gaze was fixed on him. Zhao Wenjiang pressed his lips together and instinctively averted his eyes. It's far too late to be saying these things now. 3 years ago, he didn't understand the meaning of his rebirth, but now, he knew. Given a second chance at life, he was determined to live on his own terms and change his destiny. Therefore, there was absolutely no way he would ever go back to his old ways. There was no possibility of reconciliation between him and Fu Shirui. Chapter 31, Zhao Wenjiang averted his gaze, and Fu Shirui's heart sank. In that moment, Zhao Wenjiang felt both within reach and worlds away, utterly elusive. Fu Shirui lowered her eyelids, lost in thought. Seeing this, a slow smile spread across Shentong's lips. In one fluid motion, she stepped over and settled herself right next to Zhao Wenjiang. The table was rectangular. The seating arrangement now had Fu Shirui sitting alone on one side, with Zhao Wenjiang and Shentong together on the other. Shentong squeezed into the spot, making the already cramped space feel even more crowded. With a wall on the other side, Zhao Wenjiang had nowhere left to retreat. Only after Shentong had settled comfortably into the seat did he flash a casual, roguish grin and ask Zhao Wenjiang, "Mind if I sit here?" How could he possibly refuse when you were already sitting down? Zhao Wenjiang gave a slight, tight-lipped smile, "Not at all." Fu Shirui's face instantly darkened. She ground out through clenched teeth, "Don't you have anything better to do? I'm on leave." Shentong flashed an infuriating grin before turning to Zhao Wenjiang with an invitation. "Are you free this weekend? I heard the provincial library just got a batch of Soviet literature. I think you'd like it. Want to go check it out together?" At the first words of the invitation, Zhao Wenjiang was taken aback. But upon hearing the very next sentence, his eyes lit up. It was, after all, the golden age of Sioux literature, and he had been wanting to learn more about it. This invitation struck a chord deep within him. Right then, he nodded and agreed. "All right." Fu Shirui, sitting across the table, furrowed her brow. She wanted to say something, but held her tongue with Shentong present. The meal was an ordeal. At least for Fu Shirui. The other two, however, were getting along famously. Just as Fu Shirui was about to pay, the restaurant owner said, "The bill for your table has already been settled." She furrowed her brow slightly and put the money away. Back at the table, Shentong, feigning a sudden recollection, drawled to Fu Shirui, "I already took care of the bill. Consider this my treat for the diplomat." The provocative remark failed to elicit any change in Fu Shirui's expression. She merely replied with a calm, "Thank you." Zhao Wenjiang took in the entire scene. The silent standoff between the two women was obvious to anyone with eyes. He decided to wrap up this dinner as soon as possible. Zhao Wenjiang looked up. "It's getting late. Everyone should head home." Hearing this, the two women spoke in unison. "I'll walk you out. I'll walk you out." Zhao Wenjiang glanced at Fu Shirui, then at Shentong. The women who met his gaze instinctively pursed their lips. Time seemed to slow to a crawl in that moment. Zhao Wenjiang's gaze finally settled on Shentong. "Since Shentong and I are heading the same way, we'll be off first." The latter part of his statement was directed at Fu Shirui. Fu Shirui's expression remained unchanged as she responded in a low, steady voice, "All right, take care." "All right." Zhao Wenjiang smiled and gave Shentong, who was waiting quietly nearby, a meaningful look. Fu Shirui's eyes darkened slightly. With a faint smile playing on her lips, she followed. Outside, dusk was falling. Only a streak of red remained on the horizon as the streetlights along the road flickered on. One by one, Shentong led Zhao Wenjiang over to a Hongqi sedan. Zhao Wenjiang looked at her in surprise. You bought a car? Yes. Shentong opened the passenger door, her broad back bending slightly in an inviting gesture. Your carriage awaits, esteemed Mr. Zhao. Her voice was gentle, and now, lowered, it was like sandpaper grazing paper. A touch of huskiness that was particularly alluring. Zhao Wenjiang's heart gave an involuntary flutter. With downcast eyes, he bent and got into the passenger seat. The car was filled with a woody, slightly bitter perfume, bold and aggressive. After a while, the scent became intoxicating, much like Shentong herself. Chapter 32, the red flag sedan glided forward. The cramped, silent space enveloped them both, making Zhao Wenjiang feel inexplicably short of breath. With a slight turn of his head, he could see Shentong's flawless profile. For a woman, her silent, icy expression was remarkably intimidating. The next instant, Zhao Wenjiang's furtive glance was caught. Shentong's eyes sparkled with a glint of mischief, her tone lilting, staring. Don't go falling for me. Zhao Wenjiang snapped back to reality, bundling up the stray thoughts floating in his mind and tossing them into a corner. He gave a slight, teasing smile. Oh, do you have a lot of male admirers? Shentong glanced at him, in the dim light of the car. Her eyes were startlingly bright. You've got it all wrong. My reputation is terrible. Men and women alike tend to steer clear of me. She said it with self-deprecation, but her tone was utterly nonchalant, radiating a carefree cool. In their words, I'm a good-for-nothing. The Zhao Wenjiang of old would have envied her inner strength, but now he simply admired it. After 3 years of trials, he had gradually learned not to care about what others said. The atmosphere gradually eased. Zhao Wenjiang's slightly tense body relaxed, and he quipped self-deprecatingly, really, my reputation isn't exactly stellar either. What a coincidence, we're actually quite a good match. Shentong's casual remark slipped out like a stone dropped into still water. Zhao Wenjiang seemed to hear the sound of a plop, plop, plop. It gradually morphed into the rhythm of a heartbeat. The two of them fell silent by unspoken agreement. In the quiet car, something vague and intangible seemed to be spreading, a touch of sweetness, with a hint of bitterness. Before long, the car came to a stop on Hurong Lane. We're home. Zhao Wenjiang glanced at Shentong through the window and said softly, this is me, thank you for the ride. As he spoke, he made a move to open the car door. The moment his hand touched the handle, a warm body leaned in. Shentong's arm reached across him and pressed against the door. Zhao Wenjiang froze instantly. His eyelashes fluttered as he slowly turned his gaze to the Shentong before him. Her scorching body pressed against him, yet she held back, not allowing herself to touch him at all. Do you resist me? Shentong asked softly. Trapped in her embrace, Zhao Wenjiang's mind was foggy. Hearing her question, he instinctively let out a confused, huh. It took him a moment to process what she meant. That was essentially asking if he liked her. Zhao Wenjiang blinked. The more nervous he felt, the calmer his expression became. After struggling to compose himself, he finally said with a stiff face, it's alright, backlit. Shentong's expression was obscured, but Zhao Wenjiang could see the pupils of her eyes gradually darken. Just okay, judging by your face. I thought I was a total mess. Zhao Wenjiang pressed his lips together, refusing to show any sign of backing down, and met her gaze directly. You're wonderful. In my eyes, you're a woman who's both free-spirited and yet deeply conscientious and responsible. Those words seemed to have gotten through to Shentong. She seemed taken aback that Zhao Wenjiang would say that, a rare look of stunned surprise crossing her features. Then, she let out a soft, breathy laugh and asked, so, can I pursue you? Shentong was as direct as ever, but Zhao Wenjiang found he didn't mind it at all. But the complications surrounding his identity gave him pause. Zhao Wenjiang hesitated for a moment before finally speaking up. Do you know who I am, my past? Before he could finish, Shentong responded with firm conviction. I know everything about you. Right now, I just want to know the answer. May I pursue you? Chapter 33, Shentong leaned in closer. The distance vanished in an instant. The world around them seemed to dissolve into nothingness. Her eyes were pools of darkness, yet held a scorching intensity that felt as if it could burn. As if entranced, Zhao Wenjiang stared at her without blinking, slowly uttering 2 words, okay. Those 2 words seemed to carry a kind of magic. A sweet, cloying sense of intimacy melted into the air and spread. Shentong gave a low laugh. A slight huskiness in her voice that brushed against the heart like a feather. She took a subtle, restrained step back, her eyes sparkling like stars. Then I'll see you this weekend. His mind went blank with a sudden rush. Zhao Wenjiang's face flushed with heat in an instant. He murmured softly, okay. Only after receiving a reply did Shentong step back. As the oppressive confinement ended, Zhao Wenjiang took a deep breath before finally opening the car door. The sweltering heat of late June rolled in. The restlessness in Zhao Wenjiang's heart only grew. He practically flew across the ground, rushing through the courtyard gate as if making an escape. Shentong watched as Zhao Wenjiang entered the building. She then got out of the car and walked over to a sedan parked in the shadows of a nearby tree. She raised her hand and knocked on the window, which slowly rolled down. It revealed the expressionless face of Fu Shirui. Shentong looked down at her with an inscrutable smile. I didn't know you had a penchant for following people. Fu Shirui lifted her head, though she was looking up. Her gaze held an aloof, unattainable pride. He is my husband. Wrong. Your late husband is dead. His name is now Feng Jinyan, Shentong said coolly. The words hit Fu Shirui like a bucket of ice water, sending a chill through her entire body. Fu Shirui opened the car door and stood before Shentong, her voice icy. What do you think you're doing? Shentong let out a scornful laugh. Isn't it obvious? I'm pursuing him. He is Zhao Wenjiang. We are not yet divorced. Even if you two get together, the higher-ups would never approve. You'll only be jeopardizing your own future. Fu Shirui's argument was well-reasoned and backed by evidence. Shentong, however, laughed. Forget that he's Feng Jinyan now. Do you really think Zhao Wenjiang would still be with you? With those final words, Shentong left without so much as a glance in her direction. Under the shade of the tree, Fu Shirui clenched her fists tightly. The weekend, Zhao Wenjiang got up early, threw on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, and headed out. The moment I stepped out, I saw Shentong waiting outside. She was wearing a simple dress, looking quite different from her usual self. Zhao Wenjiang walked over, a smile playing on his lips. Have you been waiting long? Shentong glanced at the sun. Not really. Just an hour or so. Next time I come to pick you up, I'll know the exact time. Next time. Those two words are quite nice. Zhao Wenjiang couldn't help but smile. The two of them shared a look and a laugh before getting into the car. The car slowly pulled away. The library is about half an hour away. They chatted like old friends, and the conversation eventually turned to the topic of their identities. Someone will look into your background sooner or later. What do you plan to do? Zhao Wenjiang's smile faded. He knew all too well that he couldn't hide forever. He hadn't mentioned it before because he was still afraid, but now, as if emboldened, a flicker of resolve flashed in his eyes. I'll go back tomorrow and make things clear to the Zhao family and Fu Shirui. Shentong looked at him with concern in her eyes. I'll go with you. Zhao Wenjiang refused outright. No. Seeing Shentong still had more to say, Zhao Wenjiang continued, don't worry, I can handle it on my own. Soon, they arrived at the library. Setting aside his distracting thoughts, Zhao Wenjiang found many Soviet novels that had been translated into Chinese. After reading just a few lines, his brow furrowed. Shentong, sitting across from him, had been watching his expression. Seeing this, she asked, what's wrong? Chapter 34. Zhao Wenjiang looked up and said, I've read the original. This translation feels a bit off. A flicker of surprise crossed Shentong's eyes. You know Russian? Oh, I accidentally gave myself away. Zhao Wenjiang smiled, lowering his gaze to the book. Yeah, I've been learning it these past few years. Shentong raised an eyebrow. She didn't ask anything further, just quietly watched Zhao Wenjiang. The gaze that followed him like a shadow was fixed squarely on him, and Zhao Wenjiang found it impossible to ignore. After a long pause, he sighed and slowly looked up. Aren't you going to read your book? Shentong put on an innocent expression. Do I look like someone who reads? Watching you is entertainment enough. For a moment, Zhao Wenjiang was at a loss for words. With no other choice, I resigned myself to reading. And so, one of us read a book while the other watched the reader, and we passed several hours in peaceful harmony. On the way back, Zhao Wenjiang couldn't help but remark with feeling. It's no small feat for you to sit quietly for hours on end. You're not wrong, but I don't mind it at all. As Shentong spoke, she ended up laughing at her own words. The day was full and beautiful, like the calm before the storm. Back home and lying in bed, Zhao Wenjiang stared blankly at the ceiling rafters. Tomorrow marks the beginning of the war. The thought of returning to that oppressive home weighed heavily on his heart. The next day, the government compound. Zhao Wenjiang walked along the familiar, tree-lined avenue, his expression growing somewhat dazed. People with familiar faces stared at him in astonishment. aren't you the Zhao family's son? You're not dead. Zhao Wenjiang offered a faint smile. Indeed, I was lucky. After making his way through the crowd, Zhao Wenjiang finally learned what had happened in his absence. Hearing that Shen Tong had cleared his name of the rumors, his heart gave an involuntary flutter. Only after fully understanding the situation did Zhao Wenjiang leisurely make his way to Fu Shirui's home. The familiar door was now right before him, yet Zhao Wenjiang's hand felt impossibly heavy. After a long pause, he finally raised it and knocked softly on the door. The door opened, and Fu Shirui visibly froze for a moment upon seeing him. What are you doing here? She asked. Am I not welcome? Zhao Wenjiang shot back. Fu Shirui was silent for a beat before stepping aside to let him pass. With his gaze lowered, Zhao Wenjiang stepped inside. Everything was just as he remembered. Please, have a seat. I'll get you a cup of tea. Fu Shirui's gentle voice came from behind him. Without turning around, Zhao Wenjiang walked straight to the sofa in the living room and sat down, asking casually, you actually replaced the sofa? Yes, my parents did. Fu Shirui called back from the kitchen. A moment later, she emerged carrying a teapot. There were several cups inside. It seemed she now understood the purpose of her visit. The two of them sat quietly, waiting for the Zhao family. Within a quarter of an hour, Mr. and Mrs. Zhao, having rushed over upon hearing the news, entered the house. At the sight of Zhao Wenjiang, his mother's eyes welled up with tears even as she smiled. It's good to have you back, she said, her voice thick with emotion. It's good to have you back. His father, however, looked at him with a gaze full of remorse. Wenjiang, he asked. If you weren't dead, why didn't you come home? Zhao Wenjiang, who had remained silent until now, finally lifted his head, looking at them. It seemed as though they genuinely had his best interests at heart, but Zhao Wenjiang knew it was all just a facade. They had been cowed by the scolding from the compound's residents and had no choice but to put on this act, hoping to garner sympathy. Zhao Wenjiang's gaze, as if he were watching a play, left his parents speechless. The room was suddenly plunged into silence. A single set of footsteps shattered the heavy silence, and Zhao Yutao appeared in the doorway. Seeing that everyone had arrived, Zhao Wenjiang spoke up. Now that we're all here, please take a seat. Zhao Yutao was completely baffled. He was about to ask a question when his mother grabbed his hand. He fell silent and reluctantly followed his mother to sit on the sofa. They took their seats one after another. Mr. and Mrs. Zhao sat on the central sofa, while Zhao Wenjiang and Fu Shirui each took a seat in the armchairs on either side. Zhao Wenjiang glanced over the Zhao family members, each with a different expression, then looked at the silent Fu Shirui. Then, he dropped two bombshells. I'm here to finish two things I haven't accomplished in 3 years. Chapter 35. A heavy silence fell over the room at his words. Fu Shirui stiffened, her eyes snapping open to fix him with an unblinking stare. Zhao Wenjiang pretended not to notice. Pulling two pre-printed documents from his bag, he handed one of the copies to Fu Shirui. He said with an impassive face, first, divorce. I've already prepared the report. Please sign it and submit it. Then we can get our divorce certificate. Fu Shirui didn't look at the report. She just stared fixedly at Zhao Wenjiang. After a long pause, she finally said slowly, divorce. Her tone was so faint that Zhao Wenjiang almost didn't catch it. Zhao Wenjiang nodded. Yes, sign it. It was as if Mr. and Mrs. Zhao had only just processed the situation. Mrs. Zhao immediately intervened. Why get a divorce? It's not easy for divorced people these days, and finding someone new is hard. Don't be foolish, Mr. Zhao chimed in, his tone still carrying an air of unquestionable authority. Now that you're back, just settle down and live properly. What's all this talk of divorce? Why do they always lecture me as if it's the most natural thing in the world, just because we share the same blood? But they never raised me, did they? Zhao Wenjiang closed his eyes for a moment, then pulled another document from his bag and slid it across the table. The second reason I'm here is to sever ties. Sign this, Mr. and Mrs. Zhao froze instantly. After a long pause, old man Zhao shot to his feet. What nonsense are you talking? He roared. You come home and immediately start talking about cutting ties. Where does that leave the Zhao family's reputation? The Zhao family's reputation again. Zhao Wenjiang's expression darkened. He was sick to death of hearing that phrase. He looked up and said calmly, what reputation? Hasn't Zhao Yutao already squandered every last bit of it? A verbal dagger straight to the heart. Zhao Yutao, whose eyes had been darting over the documents, froze for a moment upon hearing this, then paled. Wenjiang, losing patience. Zhao Wenjiang furrowed his brow and cut him off. I know everything that happened. You were the one who stirred up all those rumors. Wasn't your goal to make me get a divorce? Well, I'm giving you what you wanted. Isn't that good enough for you?" Then, he turned to Mr. and Mrs. Zhao. "You've always thought I'm not as good as Zhao Yutao, haven't you? Fine, I'll stop being your son. Would that satisfy you? Why do you keep clinging to me? Just so you have a punching bag to vent your frustrations on." Each question struck a blow to their hearts. The furious Mr. Zhao fell silent, his anger deflated, and he quietly sat back down. Mrs. Zhao let out a long, weary sigh. "Wenjiang, you are our flesh and blood after all. As your parents, we only want what's best for you." Zhao Wenjiang couldn't listen any longer and cut in flatly. "No. You just want a perfect child in every way. It doesn't matter to you whether they're your own flesh and blood or not." Mrs. Zhao was at a loss for words, seeing that none of them would sign. A flicker of irritation crossed Zhao Wenjiang's brow. He took a deep breath and said, "Since you refuse to sign, then let's divide the family assets. I'll ask the village cadres to come and witness it." As he spoke, Zhao Wenjiang made to stand up, but his mother grabbed his arm. "Who divides a family these days? We'd be a laughingstock." Seeing Zhao Wenjiang was dead set on leaving, his mother gritted her teeth and said, "We'll sign." His father stared at her in disbelief. "Have you lost your mind? How could you agree to something so absurd?" She shot him a cold glance. "Do you want the whole compound to come and gawk at our family drama?" That remark hit a nerve with the status-conscious Mr. Zhao. He glanced at Zhao Wenjiang and saw nothing but annoyance on his face. A look that screamed he couldn't wait to sever ties. Rage surged within him, and he said coldly, "Then sign it." And so, both Mr. and Mrs. Zhao signed their names. After reading it through, Zhao Wenjiang also signed his name, forming each character with deliberate care. Though it held no legal weight, Zhao Wenjiang was satisfied. From now on, if they ever brought up blood ties again, he had something to prove the relationship was severed. Chapter 36. Zhao Wenjiang placed the document back in his bag and began ushering the others out. "What remains is a private family matter between me and Fu Shirui. Please, you may all leave now." Mr. Zhao was about to say more, but a tug from his wife silenced him. The three of them walked out. The door clicked shut. Zhao Wenjiang turned his gaze to the silent Fu Shirui and said gravely, "Sign it." Seated in the shadows, Fu Shirui stared fixedly at the divorce papers. With each passing moment, it felt as if a piece of her heart was being carved away, leaving a hollow cavity for the cold wind to howl through. Hearing Zhao Wenjiang's calm words, Fu Shirui slowly lifted her head. She looked at him with a placid expression, seemingly devoid of emotion, yet inside, her heart was being shredded. Her voice was hoarse when she finally spoke. "I don't agree." At this response, Zhao Wenjiang's brow furrowed tightly. His attempts at persuasion were met with nothing but silence. Even when he resorted to threats and bribes, Fu Shirui remained as unyielding as a tightly sealed clam. Exhausted, Zhao Wenjiang gave a wry smile. "You haven't changed a bit. When things get tough, you just shut down." With those words, Zhao Wenjiang turned to leave. At the doorway, he glanced back at Fu Shirui one more time. She remained in the same position, motionless, her eyes fixed on the agreement, lost in thought. His hand involuntarily clenched. In the end, he said nothing and strode out. The room fell into silence. Fu Shirui sat there like a puppet, her face a mask of emptiness and numbness. Over the past 3 years, she had wondered countless times what would have happened if Zhao Wenjiang hadn't died. She would have treated him right. She would have made up for all the ceremonies she owed him, and the two of them would have moved forward together, hand in hand. These beautiful moments always come to fruition, bit by bit, in my dreams. But the moment I wake up and face the empty house, those lovely illusions are punctured like soap bubbles. Now, Zhao Wenjiang is alive, yet she still cannot hold on to him. After sitting for a long, long time, Fu Shirui felt an inexplicable dryness in her throat, the intense emotions pressing down on her until she could barely breathe. She desperately needed something to take the edge off. Fu Shirui got up and went to the kitchen. She pulled out a bottle of high-proof liquor, uncapped it, and took a fierce swig. The harsh taste burned her throat. She couldn't help but cough. It had been 3 years since she'd touched a drop, because every time she drank, she couldn't dream of Zhao Wenjiang. Gradually, she just stopped. Dusk was settling in. Fu Shirui sat on the sofa, her mind a jumbled mess. It felt as if she had been thinking a great deal, yet also as if she had thought of nothing at all. Her eyelids grew heavy and began to close, only to be wearily forced open again. She didn't want to sleep. She was still trying to figure out how to win Zhao Wenjiang back. Her alcohol-numbed mind finally succumbed to her body's exhaustion, and she drifted into a deep sleep. Fu Shirui had a very strange dream. It felt as if she had been transported far, far into the future. The apartment was outfitted with new appliances, but the dilapidated building couldn't withstand the ravages of time. It was clearly no longer fit to live in. Just then, she heard a loud thump. Like the sound of a chair toppling over, Fu Shirui followed the sound and saw it was coming from Zhao Wenjiang's room. For no apparent reason, a sudden unease gripped her heart. She lifted her foot, pushed the door open, and the sight that met her eyes sent a chill through her entire body. She saw, a middle-aged man was hanging in midair, his face a sickly, purplish-blue from the rope's tight, strangling grip. In the man's features, she could faintly discern the shadow of Zhao Wenjiang. In the blink of an eye, only 2 words flashed through Fu Shirui's mind: save him. She lunged forward, scooped up the middle-aged man in her arms, and tried to pull him to safety. Chapter 37. It took Fu Shirui a great deal of effort to finally save the person. For some reason, her own body felt unusually heavy. The man before her was bent over, coughing from asphyxiation, yet his face remained numb and lifeless, like a stagnant pool of water. Seeing him like this, a heavy weight settled in Fu Shirui's heart. She couldn't help but ask softly, "Are you feeling any better? Why would you try to end your life?" At her words, the man's body stiffened briefly before he resumed coughing. Seeing his genuine distress, Fu Shirui furrowed her brow and turned to leave the room. When she came back in, Fu Shirui was holding a glass of warm water. "Drink this to soothe your throat once the coughing stops." As she spoke, she handed it to the man. Hearing this, the man lifted his gaze and gave her a strange look. Still, he said nothing, simply accepting the glass. Seeing him finally show a different emotion, a faint smile touched the corner of Fu Shirui's lips. Only then did she have a moment to study him closely, and the more she looked, the more astonished she became. This man seemed to be Zhao Wenjiang, but it was Zhao Wenjiang in his middle-aged appearance. Fu Shirui straightened up, her gaze sweeping the surroundings. Her gaze fell on a digital alarm clock, and her entire body froze in place. The bold numerals 2012 stabbed at her eyes. It's 2012. She stood there for a long moment, then, as if struck by a thought, strode purposefully toward the mirror. The reflection in the mirror confirmed it. I had truly settled into middle age. No wonder my body felt so much heavier. Realizing what had happened, Fu Shirui quickly composed herself. She turned to look at the still silent Zhao Wenjiang and called out softly, "Wenjiang." This time, Zhao Wenjiang reacted, but he only gave her a strange, lingering look. This version of Zhao Wenjiang felt all too familiar. It was just like 3 years ago. He had lost all hope in life then too, moving through it like a walking corpse. Fu Shirui stepped forward slowly and helped Zhao Wenjiang, who was sitting on the ground, to his feet. He offered no resistance and let the force pull him to his feet. "Wenjiang, why are you trying to kill yourself?" Fu Shirui wanted an answer, but Zhao Wenjiang merely shook off her hand. Without a word, he turned and walked away. Step by step, her brow furrowed, and she followed him. Zhao Wenjiang simply sat on the sofa, turned on the TV, and then went still. Fu Shirui sat down beside him, intending to keep him quiet company. Perhaps this was just another dream. Fu Shirui sat on the sofa, her thoughts drifting away. Suddenly, the sound of a key turning in the lock came from the doorway. Someone was opening the door. Fu Shirui looked toward the sound and saw a young man walk in, whose face bore a 30 to 40% resemblance to Zhao Wenjiang. Taking in the scene inside, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow, pigs must be flying. Dad, you're actually watching TV with Mom." Fu Shirui's pupils contracted. Dad, Mom, was he her and Wenjiang's son? She was stunned inwardly, but her expression remained neutral as she instinctively uttered a soft mm. The son gave them a strange look, then pulled 2 gifts from his bag. "Here," he said, "these are for your 30th anniversary. Stop giving me grief about missing the party. I genuinely don't have the time." He set the gifts down and, without waiting for a reaction from Fu Shirui or Zhao Wenjiang, turned to leave. Fu Shirui stopped him, pulling her son into a corner. "Do you know what's up with your father?" she whispered. "He hasn't said a word." Her son looked at her with a strange expression, his face unreadable. "Mom," he said, "in this house, you're the one who never speaks." Fu Shirui was taken aback and instinctively retorted, "That's impossible." "How is it impossible? You've been giving him the silent treatment all this time. It's a miracle he hasn't lost his mind. He just stopped talking. So what? Anyway, when you two are home, the whole house turns ice cold. I'm used to it by now." Chapter 38. every single word, each one a dagger to the heart. Fu Shiruwei stared at her son in disbelief, her lips parting and closing soundlessly. She wanted to say something but found herself at a complete loss for words. Her son was already impatient, waving a hand dismissively. He said, "All right, Mom, that's enough, I need to get home. I'm done talking." With that, he left. Fu Shiruwei tried to stop him but couldn't. As the door closed, she stood frozen in the center of the room like a statue. After a long moment, she slowly turned to look at Zhao Wenjiang, who had been sitting on the sofa the whole time with an expressionless face. The dull ache in her heart arrived belatedly. She settled back into her original seat, her gaze fixed intently on Zhao Wenjiang's profile, her words coming out in a disjointed, absent-minded murmur. "Is this how you've been all these years? Do you hate me? I was truly awful. Go ahead, yell at me, hit me, whatever it takes to make you feel better." Fu Shiruwei spoke at length, but Zhao Wenjiang before her remained utterly unresponsive, like a block of wood. Her eyes gradually welled up with tears. Fu Shiruwei had never cried a day in her life, but seeing Zhao Wenjiang like this, she couldn't help the pang of sorrow in her heart. She slowly took Zhao Wenjiang's hand and found it was covered in calluses. These are the hands of someone who has done housework for years, rough, dull, and lacking any luster. Just by touching these hands, Fu Shiruwei knew how difficult his life had been. A single tear fell, unbidden. It landed on the back of Zhao Wenjiang's hand, and the hand within his palm trembled. Then pulled 2 gifts from his bag. "Here," he said, "these are for your 30th anniversary. Stop giving me grief about missing the party. I genuinely don't have the time." He set the gifts down and, without waiting for a reaction from Fu Shiruwei or Zhao Wenjiang, turned to leave. Fu Shiruwei stopped him, pulling her son into a corner. "Do you know what's up with your father?" she whispered. "He hasn't said a word." Her son looked at her with a strange expression, his face unreadable. "Mom," he said, "in this house, you're the one who never speaks." Fu Shiruwei was taken aback and instinctively retorted, "That's impossible." "How is it impossible? You've been giving him the silent treatment all this time. It's a miracle he hasn't lost his mind. He just stopped talking, so what? Anyway, when you two are home, the whole house turns ice cold. I'm used to it by now." Chapter 38, every single word, each one a dagger to the heart. Fu Shiruwei stared at her son in disbelief, her lips parting and closing soundlessly. She wanted to say something but found herself at a complete loss for words. Her son was already impatient, waving a hand dismissively. He said, "All right, Mom, that's enough, I need to get home. I'm done talking." With that, he left. Fu Shiruwei tried to stop him but couldn't. As the door closed, she stood frozen in the center of the room like a statue. After a long moment, she slowly turned to look at Zhao Wenjiang, who had been sitting on the sofa the whole time with an expressionless face. The dull ache in her heart arrived belatedly. She settled back into her original seat, her gaze fixed intently on Zhao Wenjiang's profile, her words coming out in a disjointed, absent-minded murmur. "Is this how you've been all these years? Do you hate me? I was truly awful. Go ahead, yell at me, hit me, whatever it takes to make you feel better." Fu Shiruwei spoke at length, but Zhao Wenjiang before her remained utterly unresponsive, like a block of wood. Her eyes gradually welled up with tears. Fu Shiruwei had never cried a day in her life, but seeing Zhao Wenjiang like this, she couldn't help the pang of sorrow in her heart. She slowly took Zhao Wenjiang's hand and found it was covered in calluses. These are the hands of someone who has done housework for years, rough, dull, and lacking any luster. Just by touching these hands, Fu Shiruwei knew how difficult his life had been. A single tear fell, unbidden. It landed on the back of Zhao Wenjiang's hand, and the hand within his palm trembled faintly. Fu Shiruwei seemed to sense something. She slowly looked up and met a pair of utterly emotionless eyes. Zhao Wenjiang spoke his first words. "Who are you?" The question made Fu Shiruwei pause for a moment. Then, catching herself, she replied quickly, "I am your wife, Fu Shiruwei." But Zhao Wenjiang shook his head. He slowly withdrew his hand, his tone flat and devoid of emotion as he said, "You're not Fu Shiruwei. She would never so much as lay a finger on me." The words were a heart-wrenching blow. Fu Shiruwei tightened her grip on his retreating hand, looking him straight in the eye, her tone deadly serious. "I am her, Wenjiang. You've suffered all these years. I'm so sorry." The hand that had been trying to pull away stilled in her palm. A faint ripple stirred in the stagnant pool of Zhao Wenjiang's eyes. The ripples in his eyes slowly welled up and spilled over his tears. He wept in silence, yet it was more heartbreaking than any loud, wailing cry. Fu Shirui's heart clenched tighter and tighter. She gathered Zhao Wenjiang into her arms, feeling his frail frame against her. Her arms tightened around him, and with a heart full of pity, she whispered into his ear. "I'm so sorry, I promise I'll never do that again." A long while passed, the person in her arms grew still. Fu Shirui looked down slowly and realized he had fallen asleep. She pressed her lips together and helped him to his room, Zhao Wenjiang's room. Halfway there, Fu Shirui suddenly halted her steps and turned toward another room. After settling Zhao Wenjiang onto her own bed, Fu Shirui gazed quietly at his sleeping face, her heart growing heavier. Zhao Wenjiang was a handsome man. Even past middle age, time had only left the faintest trace at the corners of his eyes. Fu Shirui raised her arm, her fingertips lightly brushing against his cheek. The warmth of his skin felt startlingly real. All of this was far too real. It was just like the real world, she whispered under her breath. Could this not be a dream? The next day, sunlight fell on Fu Shirui's eyelids. She slowly opened her eyes and found herself lying on the sofa. All around her was the same familiar, dilapidated room. She froze for a moment, murmuring under her breath, "I'm still here. This isn't a dream." After sitting for a while, Fu Shirui stood up and opened her own bedroom door, only to find the room completely empty. Her brow furrowed, and she went to Zhao Wenjiang's room. The sight before her sent a chill straight to Fu Shirui's core. She saw Zhao Wenjiang had hanged himself. Chapter 39. Zhao Wenjiang, a man of middle age, hung from the roof beam like a Teru doll. His face was a ghastly shade of purple, a particularly gruesome death. Fu Shirui stared fixedly at the scene before her, as if time itself had stopped in that moment. She was in a daze. Her mind flooded with unspeakable thoughts. How is this possible? He was fine just yesterday. How could he be dead today? Is this a dream? Is this really a dream? Amidst the chaos, her son's face appeared before her eyes. "Mom, Mom." His lips were moving, but Fu Shirui strained to hear and could make out nothing. Her vision suddenly shifted. She was in a funeral hall. A coffin lay at the center, and she stood there, feeling like an intruder who had stumbled in. Fu Shirui looked around and saw her son again. She tried to stop him, but he seemed not to see her, walking straight into her. He actually passed right through her body. Fu Shirui froze. She slowly lowered her gaze, only then realizing her body seemed to have faded into a phantom-like state. The faint, scattered sounds from her surroundings also reached her ears. How awful. Zhao Wenjiang actually hanged himself. Ah, isn't that quite common these days? Where isn't there someone hanging themselves in this world? That's in the countryside, where people are trapped in miserable marriages they can't escape. But his life was alright, wasn't it? Well, you wouldn't know this, but I heard his wife subjected him to emotional abuse for over 30 years. They even ate and slept separately. It's a miracle he didn't lose his mind. Each word pierced Fu Shirui's mind like a haunting curse. Is this how she treated Zhao Wenjiang? No, that's not right. She had resolved to treat him well. How could they possibly treat him like this? Fu Shirui's head throbbed with the strain of her thoughts. She kept denying it, but the words echoed relentlessly in her mind. You're the one who killed him. You're a murderer. You're a murderer. You are a sinner. This is all wrong. Zhao Wenjiang is not dead. He is not dead. This is a dream. Yes, this is a dream. Wake up. Wake up now. Her mind was in chaos as the world before her eyes began to distort, slowly forming into a vortex. The next moment, Fu Shirui was swept into the invisible whirlpool. She opened her eyes again. Fu Shirui found herself in a dark, empty void. Yet strangely, her vision remained unimpaired. Not far away stood a man. Upon closer inspection, Fu Shirui realized it was Zhao Wenjiang, but in his youthful form, his eyes were vacant, and he was muttering something unintelligible under his breath, his whole demeanor unsettling. Her pupils contracted, yet her feet carried her forward against her will. It was only after she stepped closer that Fu Shirui could make out what he was saying. No one can see me. I'm an insignificant presence. Why start over? What's the point of my rebirth? Why does nobody see me? What's the point of living like this? I'd be better off dead. The words struck Fu Shirui's clouded mind like a thunderclap. Everything fell into place. Could it be? Was everything she just saw real? No, all of this must have been experienced by Zhao Wenjiang. That's why he became a completely different person 3 years ago, to become like a walking corpse. At this thought, Fu Shirui's heart clenched painfully. If she hadn't uncovered the truth, if she had persisted in believing Zhao Wenjiang had framed her, the scene that just played out would have been exactly her style. When she detests someone, her way is to ignore them completely. Fu Shirui stared at the man before her, whose demeanor was as still and lifeless as a stagnant pond, while a torrent of guilt churned like molten lava within her. Her voice trembling, she forced the words out. One by one, I can see you. Chapter 40. Zhao Wenjiang's eyelashes, mere inches away, fluttered faintly. After a long moment, his vacant, glassy pupils fixed on Fu Shirui through the gaps between his lashes. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. No, she finally managed. You can't see me. Fu Shirui was stunned. But I can, she blurted out reflexively. Who else would be here but me? The moment the words left her lips, Zhao Wenjiang vanished from sight. The void around them began to shift, revealing a different world. A lake as smooth as a mirror, and a dilapidated, abandoned bridge. Wasn't this place already deserted? Fu Shirui frowned, her mind filled with confusion. When the figure of Zhao Wenjiang appeared at the end of the path, his face was expressionless as he walked slowly onto the abandoned bridge, moving like a wooden puppet. Oh no, that bridge looks far too dangerous. Fu Shirui wanted to go over, but found she couldn't take a single step forward. She could only watch as Zhao Wenjiang walked toward the edge of the bridge, his expression distant, as if he was seeing something else. Seeing Zhao Wenjiang about to fall, Fu Shirui couldn't help but cry out, "Stop!" At the same moment, a dark figure suddenly rushed out, grabbing Zhao Wenjiang's hand with a tone of disgust. "Look," it said, "if you're going to die, don't do it on my turf." What followed, Fu Shirui watched almost numbly. She watched Zhao Wenjiang express his thanks, and watched Shintong urge him to leave. Somehow, inexplicably, Fu Shirui knew what Zhao Wenjiang's answer would be. She let out a bitter laugh, her voice hoarse as she said, "So, you were seen at this very moment. It's too late. Everything is far too late." She wasn't 3 years late, she was 30 years late. She was a full 30 years too late. When Fu Shirui realized she and Zhao Wenjiang could never be together, it felt as if her heart was being torn apart. The searing pain turned the rims of her eyes a deep, bloodshot red. Zhao Wenjiang watched Shintong walk away, while Fu Shirui's gaze remained fixed intently on his retreating figure. A single, uncontrollable tear fell as she whispered, "I'm sorry. It seems even this long overdue apology comes too late." A trembling voice drifted through the empty void. As the words faded away, the dark, empty space suddenly lit up. Fu Shirui's eyes snapped open, taking in the familiar decor and the whirring fan blades. For a moment, Fu Shirui looked dazed, her gaze fixed on the bright red calendar. The bold numerals 1985 stabbed at her eyes once more. Had it all just been a dream? Fu Shirui stood up, sensing something was off with her face. Her hand moved instinctively to wipe her cheek, and her fingers met the cold touch of tears. She hadn't even realized she had been crying. She stared quietly at the tears on her fingertips, and a thought crystallized in her mind. It was crystal clear and unbearably heavy. She thought it was time to let go. The next day, as soon as Zhao Wenjiang arrived at the office building, he saw Fu Shirui already waiting downstairs. As I got closer, I noticed the dark circles under her eyes. She looked weary and seemed to be in a bad state. They stared at each other for a moment. When she remained silent, Zhao Wenjiang was the first to speak. "Is something wrong?" Fu Shirui was quiet for a beat before replying in a hoarse voice. "The divorce papers are ready. We can get divorced. Weren't you saying you disagreed just yesterday? Changed your mind already?" Zhao Wenjiang looked at her in surprise. "Really?" Fu Shirui's red lips parted slightly, and she nodded with difficulty. Seeing this, a genuine smile spread across Zhao Wenjiang's face. That smile of relief pierced Fu Shirui's heart once more. That very day, Fu Shirui and Zhao Wenjiang went and got their divorce certificate. The moment she stepped out the door, Fu Shirui felt a vast, hollow emptiness in her heart. Standing beside Fu Shirui, Zhao Wenjiang stared at the divorce papers in his hand, his feelings a complex mix of profound emotion. Finally, after more than 30 years, their marriage was over. Chapter 41. Zhao Wenjiang glanced up at Fu Shirui, who had remained silent the entire time, and left her with a final remark, "Farewell, for good." With that, he turned and left without a backward glance. Her own lane. Zhao Wenjiang was heading home as usual when he spotted Shintong waiting at the gate of his courtyard. She had her hands in her pockets and turned her body to look at him, her tone tinged with annoyance. "You're 20 minutes later than usual. I told you I'd come pick you up. Come on. Hurry up, Granny Kong has dinner ready and is waiting for you." With that, she made to cross the street. With so many prying eyes around, who would dare let her take it? It's not like we don't know how people love to watch a scene unfold. Zhao Wenjiang shook his head, smiled, and followed her. Then, he pulled something from his bag and held it out to her. "Look, what's this?" Shintong halted, glanced down, and her voice lifted with a hint of surprise. Oh, finally divorced. She slowly raised her head, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. Looks like I won't have to be the other woman after all. Shintong's smile was utterly captivating, dazzling Zhao Wenjiang's eyes in an instant. In the twilight, Zhao Wenjiang and Shintong exchanged a smile, a picture-perfect moment. By the time they finished dinner, night had already fallen. As usual, Shintong watched Zhao Wenjiang head inside, but suddenly, she called out to him, "Wenjiang." Zhao Wenjiang turned around to see Shintong striding over, her tone serious as she said, "Give me your hand." Zhao Wenjiang was completely baffled. What was she up to? Trusting her. He slowly extended his hand. Shintong then raised hers as well, placing something warm from her touch into his palm. Zhao Wenjiang froze for a moment, instinctively asking, "What is this?" As he spoke, he lowered his head and, by the moonlight, made out what it was. It was a gold pendant. And it was the very one he had seen in the jewelry store that day. Zhao Wenjiang looked up sharply, his eyes fixed on Shintong's, and asked in a trembling voice, "How did you know I liked this?" In the darkness of the night, Shintong's expression was impossible to make out, yet the intensity in her gaze was unmistakable, conveying a profound sense of earnestness and deliberation. "I saw it, so I bought it." It was simple and sincere, devoid of any flowery sweet talk. But it struck Zhao Wenjiang right to the core. It feels so good to be remembered, to be seen, and to be validated. Even though he told himself that others' words didn't matter, deep down he still yearned to be liked. But this time, the affection of just one person would be enough. Zhao Wenjiang smiled. "I like it very much." Before he knew it, his eyes welled up with tears, his voice trembled along with it. Shintong also smiled. "Silly goose. Hurry up and go inside," hearing her urging. Zhao Wenjiang finally tightened his grip on the pendant and went in, looking back every few steps. Late at night, Zhao Wenjiang lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. The moment he closed his eyes, Shintong's carefree eyes and brows would come to mind, and he couldn't help but smile. It was wonderful. Everything else just fell perfectly into place. After enduring Shintong's 6-month-long courtship, Zhao Wenjiang finally experienced the honeymoon phase of a relationship, something he felt he'd missed out on in both this life and the last. The whole experience was intoxicating, making his heart race and his cheeks flush with excitement. It left Zhao Wenjiang exclaiming that he had missed out on far too much in the past. So this is what a normal, healthy relationship feels like. It's wonderful. No neglect, no indifference, and certainly none of that weary, icy demeanor. After their date, Zhao Wenjiang couldn't help but muse. So dating is this much fun. I should have stopped clinging to that one dead-end branch ages ago. Shintong overheard this dangerous statement. She raised an eyebrow, patted his head with a laugh, and said, "You heartless thing. How many more are you planning to date?" Zhao Wenjiang chuckled mischievously and said with a bold, teasing air, "If you don't treat me right, I'll just go find someone else. Let me make this clear," she retorted. "You can just forget about that idea for the rest of your life." Zhao Wenjiang was laughing and dodging her hand when he glanced up and saw Mr. Shin standing not far away, staring intently at their playful scuffle. Chapter 42. Mr. Shin stormed over and demanded, "Are the two of you together?" Shintong frowned, stood up, and admitted, "That's right. He's the only one I'll ever marry." Zhao Wenjiang wanted to stop her, but it was too late. He knew his reputation was poor, so his relationship with Shintong was kept almost entirely under wraps. She always says she feels like a mistress who has to hide in the shadows, but Zhao Wenjiang was powerless to change it. With the rumors about him, Fu Shirue, and the Zhao family spreading like wildfire, he didn't want to drag Shintong into the mess. Over there, Father Shin seemed absolutely furious. He whipped his belt out with startling speed and lashed it across Shintong's arm. Asterisk crack, asterisk, a mark instantly appeared on her arm. Perhaps not expecting Shintong to stand her ground, Father Shin was stunned. Zhao Wenjiang gasped, covering her mouth, and said with a pained heart, "Why didn't you dodge?" She didn't say a word, merely stepping in front of Zhao Wenjiang and addressing the stunned Father Shin. "If you're going to hit me, get on with it." Father Shin grew even angrier, raising his belt to strike, only to halt at mid-air. Shintong shot her a glance and sneered, "Go ahead, kill me, that way I can finally tell my lone dead mother all about these past years." This seemed to hit Father Shin's weak spot. He slowly lowered his hand and said gravely, "I know you blame me for marrying someone else, but you can't gamble with your own future and your entire life." That's Zhao Wenjiang. He just divorced Fu Shirui not long ago. How did you get involved with him right on the heels of that? Shentong gave a self-deprecating smile. Good thing he got divorced. Otherwise I was ready to wreck his home. With that one sentence, she absolved Zhao Wenjiang completely. All the blame and ugliness, Shentong shouldered it all herself. Zhao Wenjiang looked at her shoulders and back, and his eyes grew hot. That remark was the final straw, igniting Mr. Shen's fury. You wretched girl, how dare you make such a fundamental mistake? As he spoke, he raised the belt once more, this time. Shentong dodged, turned, and grabbing Zhao Wenjiang's hand, she fled. The wind whipped against their faces with a howl. The warmth from his palm was comforting. Zhao Wenjiang tightened his grip on her strong hand and ran alongside her. They had no idea how long they had been running. The two of them finally managed to shake off Shen's father. As I looked around, I realized I had somehow ended up by that old, abandoned bridge. Zhao Wenjiang stared blankly at the bridge. He couldn't help but say, "This is pretty much the place where we first met." Shentong stood beside him, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. Why pretty much? Does that mean you were secretly keeping an eye on me all along? Zhao Wenjiang glanced at her and said, "Yeah, the first time I really saw you was when Uncle Shen was chasing you." Her smile froze on her face. Then, she let out a self-deprecating laugh. Great, so much for my image. The two of them exchanged a look. They each caught the glint of amusement in the other's eyes. Zhao Wenjiang sighed once more with contentment. How wonderful. The days that followed drifted by in a leisurely haze. An utterly ordinary day in the second year, Shentong proposed. She bought a pair of rings. I know you might be disillusioned with marriage. You can say yes or no, but we'll be together regardless. Zhao Wenjiang lowered his gaze. The exquisite ring sparkled under the sun, casting a brilliant gleam. Even though he had been hurt before, it didn't mean he was afraid to step into marriage again, even if everyone says marriage is nothing but the daily grind of life. But right here, right now, happiness is tangible. He was willing to take that step, so his answer was, I do. Chapter 43. The National Day holiday is a time of nationwide celebration. Shentong and Zhao Wenjiang got married. They kept the celebration low-key, inviting only close friends and family. Shentong's father was initially against it, but under Shentong's constant, motherly-style pastoring, he finally gave in. The crackle and pop of firecrackers filled the air. Shentong and Zhao Wenjiang stood at the door to greet guests, both wearing smiles. Suddenly, Zhao Wenjiang seemed to spot a familiar figure and froze for a moment. Shentong noticed immediately and asked, "What's wrong?" Zhao Wenjiang shook his head and looked again, only to find the spot now empty. He pretended not to see and continued on to greet the next person. Meanwhile, Fu Shirui, her body rigid, walked step by step out of the circle of celebration. Profound sorrow was etched in the depths of her eyes. From now on, it was completely over between her and Zhao Wenjiang. She walked aimlessly and, before she knew it, found herself at the government office building. Coincidentally, Zhao Yutao came out carrying a large box. It looked like he had been kicked out. A bystander chimed in. I heard he was trying to buy out the company on the sly and got reported for it. What was he thinking? That's a clear violation of the rules, isn't it? But I thought the deal never went through. The higher-ups have had it in for him for a while. They finally caught him red-handed, so of course they're going to fire him. Some time ago, a business owner had caused a scene with Zhao Yutao, something Fu Shirui had also heard about. Rumor has it that the company he's trying to acquire is still Zhao Wenjiang's. Zhao Yutao kept his head down, trying to walk past quickly. Yet, the moment he saw it, his steps faltered and he came to a halt. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Then they turned away from each other and went their separate ways. Fu Shirui gave a self-deprecating smile and murmured under her breath, "It's all karma." The year 2012, a blizzard raged. A bitingly cold wind kept blowing into the room. Fu Shirui lay in bed, coughing incessantly from the draft, her cough so violent it felt like her lungs would give out. The housekeeper opened the door, peeked in, and sighed, "Minister Fu, you've opened the window again." As she spoke, she walked in and shut the window tightly. The housekeeper didn't leave after closing the window. She stood there hesitantly, as if she had something to say. Fu Shirui coughed until her face was flushed red. It took her a long moment to recover. She glanced over and said, "If you have something to say, just say it." The housekeeper smiled ingratiatingly. "Minister Fu, tomorrow is New Year's Eve. I really must get home. The dumplings are in the fridge. You can just heat them up tomorrow." Fu Shirui pressed her lips together, coughed once more, then waved a tired hand. "Go on." Then, with the nanny gone, the house felt empty and desolate once more. Fu Shirui gazed at the familiar green-painted wooden window. her eyes clouded with a distant haze. In the blink of an eye, 30 years had passed, and she remained alone to this day. The ginkgo tree outside had grown old too, its branches withered and dry, much like the frail, spent sound of her voice. Fu Shiruwei forced her severely ill body to endure through the winter. Day by day, her condition worsened, until she could no longer even walk. One day, she seemed to experience a sudden, final rally of energy. She asked her caretaker,